a Borgonzi pick, or that was Brian Callahan's pick. I don't want to hear any of that. This is your quarterback. The good news for you is you're picking number one. The last general manager got fired and the last head coach got fired because they took a quarterback in the second round. And at the time, everybody said, look at the value. And I said, it doesn't matter. Value, good value. You don't get bonus points because Kansas City traded 2 first-rounders and a third to go up and get their quarterback, and you took yours in the second round. That's not how this works. And both guys have been fired. Chad Brinker is in charge of the Titans football operation. If they pick Cam Ward, it's on him. Mike Borgonzi signed up to work for this crap hole of an organization and not making the final decision, even though his title is general manager, because as he said at the time, he's so close with Chad Brinker. And let me just get this out of the way right now, because I understand the risk that comes with drafting a quarterback number 1 overall. If I was the general manager in Indianapolis, I might be packing my stuff up today because I would have taken Anthony Richardson the same way they did. And while I contend that Indianapolis has done absolutely everything wrong since the second they acquired Richardson in his development, maybe he would have stunk no matter what. Maybe if Bill Walsh was the coach and we had sat him on the bench and we had gone out and gotten him Justin Jefferson and hadn't gotten into a contract dispute with Jonathan Taylor and didn't get him hurt as a rookie, maybe he'd still suck. But at that point in time, that was a risk I was willing to take. So I understand the risk. Cam Ward's talent, no disrespect, is not something that I would risk my career on, especially if I don't have to. That doesn't mean that Cam Ward doesn't have talent, because Cam Ward does have talent. I've watched Cam Ward's tape. He is a first-round pick. In any draft, I believe Cam Ward is a first-round pick. And I know there was a general manager that told ESPN.com that he doesn't have a first-round grade on any of these quarterbacks. Again, Cam Ward's a first-round pick. The same way that Will Levis, and we can crap on him all we want, but Will Levis has first-round talent. Cam Ward has first-round talent. But risking your career on Cam Ward, that's something that I would be a little nervous of. But again, and I don't know the secret deals they've made with Amy. I don't even know how Chad Brinker got his job. I've asked Chad Brinker how Chad Brinker got his job. How come Ran Carthon's former assistant general manager, who was the guy that was like the 5th in charge in Green Bay, how come he is now the czar of the football opera? What the hell has he done to earn that? And nobody over there has an answer, by the way, other than, well, Amy likes him. But they've decided, by all intents and purposes, they've decided to risk their careers on Cam Ward. Either that, or they think deep down inside they'll be able to excuse their way out of this. In 99.9% of NFL operations, I would say that's impossible. You take a quarterback number 1 overall, you get your fan base excited that this guy will lead you to the promised land, and when he doesn't, everybody gets fired. But again, maybe they think they'll finagle their way out of this. I don't know. So I'm excited for the draft. I am especially excited for day 2 because we know what the Titans are going to do on day 1. Although I am excited about some of the moves that may get made with other teams in round 1. How far will Shedeur Sanders fall? Is Mike Vrabel going to take the tackle with short arms after he took the tackle with short arms here and wouldn't play him at tackle? You know, where's Genty going to go? I am excited. But as we talk about what a lot of people are saying, but not as adamantly as me because they don't have as much skin in the game when it comes to the Titans. The Titans are going to overdraft Cam Ward with the number 1 pick. I just hope Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, that have worked their entire careers to get to the spot where they are now, understand that if this guy ain't the truth, then you will be fired. And if we can all agree on that, then on you go. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So Adam Schefter had a report today about the Giants and the offer the Giants made to the Titans to try to move up to number 1. And it was, let me just say, odd. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. There you go. That was Field Yates today on ESPN saying, hey, the one thing that we know is for sure is that Cam Ward is going number 1 overall. Again, we can parse this, that they've made the decision. They'll have a press conference tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Borgonzi and Brinker. And because the NFL wants the draft to kind of be a surprise, I watched the 1998 draft a couple weeks ago on YouTube, and they were like, the Colts and the Chargers both brought Manning and Leaf jerseys with them to New York. Why would Indy do that when they knew who they were going to take? But they like the TV show, so they're not going to come out tomorrow and say they're going to take Cam Ward. But you should be able to read between the lines in the press conference tomorrow, and you should be able right then and there to say, yeah, they're taking Cam Ward. Clearly, Cam Ward has talent, and I've never knocked that. I watched the tape. We went inside the Jared's film room, and I watched the tape, and I'm like, yeah, this guy to me is a middle of the first round. I'd feel comfortable picking him at number 18, type of quarterback. The meetings would be very important to me. If he wowed me in those meetings where I sat down with him and I was like, man, this kid, he gets it. That would be very important. If he explains why he never really adjusted versus the blitz at Miami, that might help. Because if Cam Ward didn't have talent, then the Browns and the Giants wouldn't be trying to trade up for the pick. And again, ESPN has said the Browns called, Titans said no thank you. The Giants called, Titans said no thank you. But I read Adam Schefter's reporting of what the Giants offered, and I found it to be odd. Quote, Borgonzi, and I love how Schefter, the guy who reported that Dan Moore, that the deal was done with Brinker, but again, that's their business, I guess. Borgonzi, Schefter writes, turned down the Giants' overtures to trade up to number 1 in a package of picks that would have included a 3rd-round pick this year. Now he'll have to see if he can find a way back into that round. So wait a minute, hold on. Here's why I find the reporting to be odd. There is no doubt that if the two sides were to sit down, and we know they did because at the Breakers Hotel, at the owners' meetings, Joe Shane and Mike Borgonzi had coffee in front of everybody. So let's just say that there was an offer made. I'm sure there was an offer made. Adam Schefter selling this like, hey, they offered a 3rd rounder, and Tennessee still had the gall to turn them down. I hope that wasn't the only thing that was included in that package. So Schefter says they offered a package of picks. And Schefter, again, selling this package of picks, says a package of picks that would have included a 3rd-round pick this year. As if that's the selling point. As if this were the showcase showdown on The Price is Right. And you're waiting for the trip to Italy. You're waiting for the new car. And it just ends. And you're like, that's it? A home gym and a washer and dryer and a new laptop? That's it? Where's my all-inclusive vacation to Turks and Caicos? So I'm trying to figure out a package of picks that, get this, it includes a 3rd rounder this year. And I'm sure the package of picks had something better in it, but I'd like to know what the better was. I give a rat's ass about an extra 3rd-round pick when we're talking about trading the 1st-round pick. What's the extra? And if Adam Schefter is selling this offer as, yeah, the Giants, they wanted to move up so bad they offered a 3rd-rounder to try to get up there, I'm thinking, did they not offer a 1st-rounder next year as part of the deal? Did they not offer a 2nd-rounder in this year's draft, like a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, a 2nd next year? Like, what's this package? If you're just telling me, hey, it included a 3rd-rounder, are we talking they told the Titans, like, hey, we just don't think that Cam Ward's that good. We'd like to move up to number 1 so we can risk our careers by drafting him, but we don't think he's that good, so we'll offer you 3 and a 3rd and a 4th and a 3rd next year and a 4th next year. Seriously, that could not have been the offer. So I find that part of it, again, odd. I'd like to know what the Titans turned down. There are still rumors today, and I have never had somebody on the record or off the record, tell me that the Titans turned down some massive package from Philadelphia for Marcus Mariota, but that's the rumor that's out there. I would just like to know, if you turned down the Giants, what did you turn down? Because as of right now, Schefter's making it sound like the best thing in that package of picks was a extra third rounder, which is not enough to move out of number one. Like, even if I've told you guys I wouldn't take Cam Ward, I would take Travis Hunter if nobody called, I'm still not moving to 3 for an extra third with Travis Hunter. You're going to have to give me like a third and a second next year. The other thing I hear a lot of people say, because as you all know, I'm not the biggest Cam Ward guy, but I hear you all say, if Cam Ward is not good enough to go number one to the Titans, then why is it okay for the Browns or the Giants to make a trade for Cam Ward? And the one thing I'll say about all of that is they're more desperate than you are. They have to have a quarterback, or at least there's the appearance of a desperate team that is, again, desperate to get it figured out at quarterback. The Titans are not in that spot. They have a new general manager and what they seem to consider a new team president, even though he was here. You don't have to take the quarterback. You can say, hey, let's wait it out until next year. And then let's go take, again, I don't know, Drew Aller or Arch Manning, or I don't know. And I don't love those guys either. But seems to be better than this year's class. Whereas if the Giants don't get it figured out at quarterback, they're fired. The Browns, I mean, they're all in on paying Deshaun Watson. They've got to get a young guy to play quarterback. And you're telling me that you're going to run Tyler Shuck out there? So you don't have the same shackles. You're not in the same predicament. And again, I'm talking about Borgonzi and Brinker. They're not in the same predicament that Joe Shane and the Giants are. But boy, that is concerning if the best they're offering is, again, an extra third round pick. I mean, can you believe this unbelievable trade offer? An extra third round pick? Holy crap. They got to do better than that. And it would not, and again, I'm sure there was an extra second in there somewhere. I'm sure there was what I want to know is, well, how good was the package? Did the Giants offer their one this year, their one next year, and their third this year to move up? Because I'd take that. Anything that involves the Giants extra first, I'd take it right away. I'd take 1, 2, 3. Give me 34, give me 65. See ya. I'm going to number 3. But I just want to know what the Titans turned down. And the way Schefter sold it was they turned down an extra third round pick. 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in, so we will get to you next. 615-737-1025. We are giving away Metallica tickets later today on the program. And also, let me just make sure everybody knows this while we're kicking around here, getting ready for the draft. There was a report from Adam Schefter that mentioned 2 Titans that could be on the trading block this week. And I think it's going to blow up, and maybe already has, more than it should. We'll get to that coming up next. Hey, do not miss the best draft coverage right here. That's right, on the Game Sports Network. Thursday night, we will be live at Twin Peaks in Madison. Again, Thursday night, draft night in Nashville. Me, Chris, Derek, Trevor. We will be live. Come on out and join us at Twin Peaks in Madison. And then on Friday, we'll be live from Boomba's Pizza and Watch Bar in East Nashville. Coverage begins at 6 o'clock each day, presented by Hardee's, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Twin Peaks, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, and Shane Companies, along with professional home improvements. Get excited. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That was Bill Polian this morning on Sirius XM NFL Radio. And you heard what he said, which is, hey, the owner's going to get involved. The people close to the owner, they're going to get involved. They're all going to have opinions. They're all going to, but this is a spot the Titans are in because they missed, as Bill Polian said, they missed on Will Levis. And I took the bait today. I bought into it. I pulled up my phone, ESPN.com. I'm logged in. I'm an ESPN Plus member, and my favorite teams, according to ESPN, are the Braves and the Titans and the Predators and so I pulled it up, and it was like the latest from Adam Schefter, where Will Levis might go. And I thought, interesting. So I clicked it. I made a mistake. Will Levis is on a giant list of people that Adam Schefter lists as potential trade targets during the first 2 days of the draft. George Pickens is on that list. Kirk Cousins is on that list. Much better players than Will Levis and Treylon Burks are on the list. But there was Will Levis and there was Treylon Burks. And I figured almost immediately, social media is going to blow this up and run with it. And on cue. And again, ESPN.com did the same thing because it targeted me and said, you'll never guess what Adam Schefter thinks will happen to Will. I'm like, is there a team that might actually be interested in trading for Will Levis? Let me click the link. Let me see if there's no, just a list of guys that could be traded. And it was a very, very, very long list. But as social media and apparently ESPN.com is concerned, they're going to make a big post that Adam Schefter says Will Levis could be traded. Well, I've been saying that since they benched him for Mason Rudolph in the Cincinnati game. And then they came out the next week and said, Mason Rudolph's going to start going forward. That was when I said, this is over. Once you make the move, you don't go back. And all offseason, the Titans have told people, and this is why we don't trust the Titans, because most of the time, the Titans are lying. In fact, I remember before the 2022 draft, I asked John Robinson point blank, is there any chance A.J. Brown gets traded before Thursday night? And he said, I don't foresee that happening. And immediately it said at the bottom of ESPN, Titans general manager don't foresee trading A.J. Brown. Well, again, I like John Robinson, but that's a lie, as we all know now. So I don't trust the Titans. And the Titans have said, we haven't made calls on Levis. We're not taking calls on Levis. But this idea that all of a sudden, there's going to be a taker for Levis and there's going to be a taker for Burks, I don't get the sense that that's based on anything other than, the Titans are drafting Cam Ward, and clearly that means there's no place for Levis. And the problem with Levis is, because everybody and their grandma knows you're drafting Cam Ward, I don't think there's any chance you'll get any real value for him. And the Titans probably think Levis is better than that. The Titans probably think, here's what we'll do. We'll take Levis and we'll take that pick at the top of the fourth round because we're still picking in the middle of the fourth round, and we'll turn that into a third round pick. And maybe that happens. But as of right now, teams have already kind of filled out their backup quarterback spot. Whether it's by signing Scarbini, he's like your backup quarterback, Brandon Allen, or whether it's like the Cowboys, swapping a seventh for a fifth and getting Joe Milton to be the backup. So, again, I don't really know. Like, when it comes to Levis, I don't really know where he's going to go, or if he's going to go right away, or if they're going to let him play in the preseason and then try. I don't know. I just know this. I was a sucker and I took the bait on the Adam Schefter article because ESPN said, you got to do that. And I clicked on it. Oh, no. Secondly, Burks. Number one, who wants Treylon Burks? He's only been given 9,000 chances, and he has not performed with any of the 9,000 opportunities that have been given to him. Secondly, he's hurt. What team is going to trade for a hurt wide receiver with fully guaranteed money? And we're talking about real money. Again, it's not like it's $10 million, but it's not free. So, again, I clicked the article. They said Burks and Levis, and this is what happens because I know how fandom works. You see an Adam Schefter say something like that. Actually, somebody on social media says Adam Schefter said, and then all of a sudden it works its way at water coolers and school hallways and everything else. If I heard Adam Schefter say Treylon Burks is getting traded, Adam, explain to me who's going to be trading for Treylon Burks. Somebody give me some sort of an explanation on that. 615-737-1025, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Adam in Portland weighs in, and he says, Jared, you've got to give this kid a shot or just keep your streak alive of hating every first-round pick like it's your job. In fairness, I only hated the last 2 years' first-round picks, and I hated Caleb Farley. I did not hate Isaiah Wilson. I did not hate Treylon Burks. I did not hate Jeffrey Simmons. So this is, again, a case-by-case development, and I stand by my hate on both Latham, a left tackle that everybody told me could, or excuse me, a right tackle that everyone told me could play left tackle, and then they decided he couldn't, and a guard with the 11th overall pick when they had Andre Dillard at left tackle. But he says, let's try something wild, Adam in Portland says. Let's try supporting Cam Ward. So what would that be? If I was to get on here today and support Cam Ward, when, again, I've said, I don't believe Cam Ward is going to be a superstar quarterback. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm the biggest Titan fan you guys know. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I will be, but I hope I'm wrong. What would supporting him be? Would that be like saying, oh, yeah, Cam, he's the next Mahomes? Should I do that? Louis Riddick style? He's the next Mahomes. In fact, I think he is Mahomes, Brady, Manning, Staubach, Sammy Baugh, Otto Graham. I mean, he's better than all of them. You put a leather helmet on him right now, and he'll go to 1920 and he'll kick somebody's ass. That work? I don't understand what supporting Cam Ward or not supporting Cam Ward. I mean, I'm sitting here telling you like, hey, you need to get him a better tight end. I think that is support as far as I'm concerned. I'm supporting him by telling him you need better players. But that's just me. Another texter says, that there's so much nickname potential for Cam Ward. Try a new nickname each time you refer to him this week, something that might stick. My first suggestion would be camouflage. No wait, dash cam, endless fun. That's the morning show that does that, not me. Again, our nicknames are all organic, like PT. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. We'll get to some of your phones. Plus, there is one thing that if I do hear tomorrow at the press conference, I will feel a little bit better about. We'll get to that as well. 615-737-1025. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor are proud to announce we'll be back at the Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. It's actually funny. I was over at a friend's house yesterday, and he was like, yeah, we had Hiller come in, and we had them take care of XYZ. And last week, I was at my parents' house, and they had Hiller come in, and they took care of a plumbing issue they had. Everybody that I know that uses Hiller absolutely loves them. And that's why I keep telling you about how great they are. Nobody wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency, especially not me. And most of the time, you do not know what it'll cost, if it will get fixed correctly, or if somebody is just trying to sell you something that you do not need. When you call Hiller, their experts are going to solve your problems quickly, and the price you're told is the price you'll actually pay, with no hidden fees or surprises on your bill. So book online now by visiting happyhiller.com. That's happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters, the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Hat-Face Truck today.
Yeah, you have to have a plan. I think that's the biggest thing when you draft one of these guys, and we certainly had a plan in Kansas City. We were blessed to have Alex Smith there at the time, and he kind of took him under his wing. But there was temptations there to play him early on because he's just the physical talent that he has. But I think it's important as an organization to be aligned and having a plan for that quarterback when you bring him in. And some of these guys are ready to play right away, but you have to have a plan coming in and evaluate them through OTAs and training camp to see if they're ready to play.
That was Mike Borgonzi on Sirius XM NFL Radio. That was Borgonzi talking at the Senior Bowl about, hey, what'd you learn about Mahomes? And he said, I learned that if you take one of these quarterbacks, you have to have a plan. Well, it feels like they're going to take the quarterback, Cam Ward, on Thursday night. Now, maybe we'll have to wait until Thursday evening to hear the plan. But considering that nobody can stop the Titans between now and Thursday from taking Cam Ward, I would like to know tomorrow when they hold their press conference at 1:00. And I heard the midday show joking about this at the end of their show saying, hey, there's not going to be a lot of insight tomorrow from Brinker, Borgonzi, and Callahan. And they're probably right. But it would be nice to hear how much they've thought about this. Lay out to me why you think Cam Ward will be a franchise quarterback for your football team. And you can do it before you draft him. I know it sounds crazy, but I think you can do that. I think you can lay that out. And I don't think it'll ruin any sort of special type of the trade secret that you have for whatever that's worth. One texter says, there will be deals attempted right up until the first pick is announced. We watched the Giants on Hard Knocks last year. They won't make a mistake by not going with a high offer this time. So I kind of feel like the Titans have told everybody, hey, don't even worry about it. We're not going to do this. We're not going to trade. Don't call back. Don't. But I would like to know what the Giants offered the first time. When they first sat down, did the Giants say, hey, we'll offer 3, 34, one of our 2/3, and neighbors? And the Titans said no, because if they said no to that, I got a problem with that. If the Giants are like, hey, Cam Ward is not a typical 1-1 quarterback, we're only moving from 3, we'll offer you a 1/3 this year, a 1/3 next year, a 4th this year, and a 4th next year, then I would say no. But I want to know what they offered. I don't think that we're going to be shocked by, oh my God, breaking news, Tennessee on the clock, and they've made a trade with the Saints, who have moved up from number 9. I don't think we'll see that. If something like that was going to happen, I think we would have seen that about a week and a half ago. One texter says, why would the Titans not trade with the Giants or the Browns? We could still get a quarterback and then get more picks. Seems like a no-brainer to me, says Wes in Clarksville. So a lot of the Titan fans out there have, I think, kind of talked themselves in to Cam Ward's going to be a franchise quarterback. And I'll use the distinguished gentleman, my guy, on the YouTube chat. I'll use him as an example. Because earlier today, he said, we're not listening to anybody. We're taking Cam or Sanders. But for the longest time, until it looked like the Titans were going to take Cam Ward, the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat kept saying, they're going to take Sanders. Sanders incoming, and then would send like the watch emoji. And so this was a Mr. Sanders right there. But now that the Titans have telegraphed that they're going to take Ward, he's now a Mr. Ward guy. But if you're using your head, would you not have said, okay, fine, let's trade back to 3 and take Sanders? That's if you like Sanders, which again, you people did like Shedeur Sanders. I've seen the images of Shedeur Sanders photoshopped on an Oilers jersey. So what it tells me is the Titans don't like Sanders, just like nobody else likes Sanders, which may be a bigger Sanders discussion than anything else. But apparently they retired his jersey at Colorado, and Dion got all mad that everybody thinks it's absurd that an above-average quarterback got his jersey retired 5 minutes after he left campus. One texter says, if any team takes Levis, I will sell them some oceanfront property in Arizona. Remember that Kenny Pickett has been traded twice in the last year and a month. Guys trade for backup quarterbacks all the time. Joe Milton just got traded. This would not be some shocking, oh my God. This is not Zach Mettenberger, who I don't think ever played a down in the NFL after the Titans got rid of him. He's not that bad. He's bad, but he's not that bad. One texter says, I don't know if I should read this, but he texted it, so I'm going to read it. I'm a chef at an exclusive country club in Nashville, and in the past week, Brock Purdy and his agent have been at our club multiple times. So let me do a search here for who Brock Purdy's agent is, because I do wonder if it's a local guy. Brock Purdy's agent is Kyle Strongen. So I've never heard of this guy. No idea if he's a local guy, not a local guy, whatever. I don't think the 49ers are going to let Brock Purdy go. And this is the thing about the NFL. This is what I think some people don't totally understand. In the NFL, the team owns you because everybody wants to get paid as early as possible. And that is most things in life. But unlike a lot of other contracts where when your contract runs out, you can go wherever you want to go, in the NFL, it doesn't, because they can franchise tag you. And then they can franchise tag you again. And so with Brock Purdy, if the 49ers don't want to let him go, and the 49ers have made it very clear that I don't think they want to let him go, he's not going anywhere. At least as far as I'm concerned. One texter says, are you going to the Borgonzi press conference, the Borgonzi and Brinker press conference tomorrow? And if so, why don't you reference Borgonzi talking about how important Alex Smith was for Patrick Mahomes and how this situation is different because it looks like if they draft a quarterback, he's going to have to play, and how important it was for Mahomes to not play. I'm sure people will ask Mahomes-type questions tomorrow. I've got some questions I do want answered, but they're not exactly the Mahomes variety. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Coming up next, a Preds player, he didn't directly do it, but I'm pretty sure he did it. A Preds player threw the coach under the bus. And again, he didn't directly do it, but I think he did it. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. It is Cam Ward week, which means we will not have a ton of time for the Predators this week, even if they fire Andrew Burnett. But as I have guaranteed, I don't expect them to fire him. Now, on Friday, however, maybe there's a sign that a little something could be coming. Because Barry Trotz was on our program on Wednesday, the day of the season finale, and it felt like that interview, Trotz made it very clear that he supports Andrew Burnett, but I gave him the opportunity to say, hey, is he coming back? Trotz said no, because he's got to go through the exit meetings. And I said, interesting. Again, he creaked open the door. Hey, if these exit meetings are get rid of the coach, then maybe I have to reconsider. And usually the players have a day where they, quote unquote, clean out their lockers and they go do press conferences, and players will say, yeah, I played with a cracked elbow for the last 6 weeks of the year. And yeah, I ruptured my Achilles and I'll be better for training camp. And yeah, we got to play harder. It's all the same old stuff. So I didn't even pay much attention to it on Friday. Didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Didn't say, oh, let's get the audio back in here. Let's get the... And then I saw a quote Robbie Stanley posted on Twitter from Jonathan Marchessault. And I said, holy crap. And this is Jonathan Marchessault. This is the entire exchange between Robbie and Marchessault on the locker cleanout day, the exit meetings on Friday. Here is what Jonathan Marchessault said about his coach. And quite frankly, again, he didn't say it directly, but he said it. Play the cut.
Is there anything specifically with the way you guys play, the style of play, that you would like to see adjusted heading into next year?
Yeah, clearly it didn't work. Right. So obviously there's going to be some adjustment to do. I mean, I'm a guy that has a lot of opinions, so I don't think I'm going to run them out right now. But there's definitely adjustment. I think one of the things that we adjusted this year that I think was good is in our D zone, sometimes we had our winger a lot on the boards, and now they were more towards the middle. So we kept a lot of things towards the outside, and I think our D zone got better with that. That's one of the things that we did better this year, I think, from the beginning to the middle. So, I mean, obviously there's adjustment that needs to be done. And to be honest, my mindset is...
Pause it right here for a second. Okay. So up into that point, he really hasn't said anything bad about the coach other than obviously we're going to have to do something different next year because it didn't work this year. But, we did make an adjustment in the D zone and it did kind of work. But Marchessault didn't just period, end, move on. He continued.
To be honest, my mindset is every team in the NHL should take a page of the books of the best teams in the NHL. I think they're the reason why they're there. Yes, they have sometimes they go up. They're at the cap. I think that's something that's super important to be competitive. I think some of the teams that are the best, they do something really good to be there, and I think everybody needs to take a little bit of page of the good teams in the league. That's why that's why playoff hockey is the best hockey, because that's why you look at the teams, you see how they play their game, their system, how they adjust certain situation, because I've had a lot of different coaches, and probably one of the best coaches I ever had was Bruce. And one thing, me and him, we definitely headbutt each other, but he adjusts. He adjusts every game, and he's a unbelievable hockey mind, and there's a reason why they're so good. Obviously, they have the tools over there, but he's a guy that thinks the game super well, and that's something that I really enjoyed from him.
You want to know something that I've learned girlfriends don't like hearing about? Ex-girlfriends. And so here's Jonathan Marchessault, again, asked about the style of play. And Marchessault says, I got a lot of opinions. I'm not going to share them all right here. But, and then goes on to talk about how Bruce Cassidy He adjusts. The coach that I used to play for in Vegas, he adjusts, and we need to take a page out of their book, and we need to do things like them, and we need to. And I loved it. I loved it. Because when I read that on Friday night, and I still believe this, I thought Marchessault is making it very clear. Either he needs to go or I need to go. And the Predators and the way they do business, Jonathan Marchessault is speaking out unlike anybody I can remember over the 10 years that I've been on the radio, and it was 10 years yesterday since I've been here at 102.5 The Game. And he is, I think, again, the most outspoken. That is the most outspoken I have heard about a coach or anything else in the 10 years I've been doing this. I'll never forget Craig Smith during the playoffs one year said something like, yeah, everybody's frustrated about the power play. I'm frustrated by the power play. We keep doing the same things and it doesn't work. And I said, Craig Smith calls out the coaches. And Craig Smith blew a freaking gasket. He called their PR director. Their PR director called up Ryan Porth, all bent out of shape. And I think because Porth was, he was a good PD, but I think he was a younger PD at the time. I think if the Chicago Cubs called Ryan Porth at this point in time in Chicago, he probably wouldn't get all worked about it. But they called Ryan Porth. Ryan Porth's like, Craig Smith's so bad that you said he called out the coaches. And I'm like, well, didn't he kind of do that? Like, isn't that kind of what that was? Well, make no mistake about this. Marchessault was calling out the coaches. Or, you know what? Let's not be plural here. He's calling out the coach. And he is saying, like, hey, I've played for good coaches before, and they adjust. And we need to do what the better teams do. And what the better teams do is they adjust. We need to spend to the cap like the other good teams do. We need to do that. And I'm telling you right now, I have been saying this for months. He does not fit what the Predators want in their organization. He doesn't. They do not like anybody who comes in there, voices an opinion, and rocks the boat. And again, it's been this way for 10 years at least. And I think the Predators need it. I think Marchessault and his a-holeness is exactly what this organization needs. They need to get meaner. They need to get tougher. They need to put up with less bullcrap. Las Vegas has a very different outlook on the NHL than the Predators do. And I think in large part that may be because when the Predators came in the league, they had a terrible expansion draft and the rules were set up for them to fail, and they did. When Vegas came into the league, they had great rules as far as the expansion draft was concerned, and they ended up in the Cup final in year one. Vegas does everything at warp speed. The Predators, as much as it feels like sometimes they say they want to go at warp speed, it really feels like they really want to go at David Poile speed. No disrespect. The Predators are a very patient, very loyal organization. As somebody said it to me this weekend, the Predators aren't losers, but they aren't killers either. Las Vegas is absolutely ruthless. They cheat the cap every year with that LTIR. They fire a coach at the drop of a hat. Gerard Gallant got them to the Cup final, and before you could blink, he was gone. And Peter DeBoer won a bunch of games, and then they lost 1 year after COVID, gone. Bruce Cassidy wins the Cup. They lost the first round. They lose to Minnesota. Who knows about Bruce Cassidy? They'll fire the coach at the drop of a hat. Here, it's like a 3-year debate as to whether or not John Hines can coach. Vegas, they don't even care about picks. They just trade away 4 picks and 3 prospects every single year. They did it for Thomas Hertl. They did it for Noah Hannafin. They did it for Jack Eichel. They did it for Mark Stone. And they don't give a rat's ass. They just chip them off. They'll spend, they'll fire, they'll trade. They go for it. It is a different speed. It is a ruthlessness that Vegas operates with that I, quite frankly, appreciate. And I think Jonathan Marchessault is used to that kind of speed, and he's used to that kind of attitude, and he doesn't see it here. And quite frankly, I think the Predators need some more of that in their blood. I think they need some of that ruthlessness. I'm not saying they need to turn into the Dallas Cowboys where everybody has to complain about everything every day. But I think they need more of an edge. And you know what hit me thinking about this over the weekend? You want to know when the Predators were at their best? When they had Peter Laviolette as the head coach and PK Subban as the star. You want to know why? Because Laviolette and PK Subban had already made their bones in the NHL before showing up to Nashville. Laviolette did things the Laviolette way, and PK did things the PK way. Not the Nashville Predator way. David Poile, bless his heart. He is a Hall of Famer, and he deserves it. But he talked after the 2020 season, which was the first full season after they had fired Laviolette mid-year and had moved on from PK Subban, and he talked about bringing back the Predator way. And that sounds nice, doing things the Predator way. But the Predator way over 25 years hasn't really involved a lot of winning now, has it? It traditionally results in some winning and then justifying the losing. The Predators have not won a playoff series since 2018. Again, the year Vegas entered the league. They need to do things differently. And maybe Jonathan Marchessault, as uncomfortable as I guarantee you it is for the organization that has somebody that flies on that plane, that changes in that dressing room, that talks to the media, that they're paying millions and millions of dollars to, that doesn't just go along to get along, which is what they're used to. As uncomfortable as I bet Marchessault is for that organization, this might be the perfect disruptor to get everybody out of what I consider to be the daily Predator trudge that deep down inside is the only way the Predators know how to do business. I like Andrew Burnett. I think Andrew Burnett's a good guy, and I think Andrew Burnett is a good hockey coach, and I will stand by that. But I said this last week. I said this to Barry Trotz last week. 95% of the teams in the NHL would not even consider bringing Andrew Burnett back. 85 to 90% of the teams would have fired Andrew Burnett by Thanksgiving this past year. But not the Predators. The Predators are too loyal. The Predators are too kind. The Predators are too optimistic. Again, they go along to get along. And they've got a team full of people that have come up through Milwaukee and have learned you got to go along to get along. Yaroslav Askarov didn't go along to get along. He's gone. But Jonathan Marchessault marches to the beat of his own drum. And a lot of times, distractions, problems in the room, things like that, I think are real problems. And I'm like, okay, you can't have that. But in this specific case, I think it's the opposite. I think this is exactly what they need. They need somebody who will put a foot up somebody's rear end. And it sounds like he's the one guy in there that'll do it. So you can couch it. I haven't looked at the text line. I don't know if people say, oh, Marchessault didn't throw the coach under the bus. I saw the transcript of that cut and said he chucked the coach under the bus. I have now heard that cut. He chucked the coach under the bus. I've been saying this for months. Andrew Burnett, quote unquote, called out the team after they lost a game on a Thursday night game I didn't even watch. I went on Robbie and Rex Road at 7 a.m. the next morning. They asked me about Burnett, and I said, well, Robbie knows he's talking about Marchessault. And of course, Joe, ever the journalist, oh, no, you don't know that. You don't. I've had enough people around the team tell me Marchessault is an issue. And I voiced it. And I brought this up last week and said they've got a Marchessault problem. But after hearing Marchessault come forward and air his grievances, the more I'm actually thinking, you know what? They need to do things the Vegas way around here. Because Vegas has been in the league since 2018. They've won a cup. They've been to another. You haven't won a playoff series since 2018. So maybe it's time to put the Predator way to the side and start doing things Marchessault's way. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. And I know I guaranteed, based off of what I'm used to from the Predator way, I have guaranteed Andrew Burnett's return. And yet, I think there's a right now, I would not, if I was on the clock, I would not guarantee it today. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Yeah, I'm here to coach. Love my job, love my team until I'm told otherwise. I'm going to continue to work and become a better coach. And I think I'm an extremely competitive person. Sometimes it doesn't always come out that way, but and I think our group is an extremely competitive group. And we're not where we want to be. It was not from a lack of care or work. It just didn't happen. And myself and my staff, we're going to go back to work. And I think we're going to take a breath. We're going to analyze, find out what we can do better, where we can do better, what went wrong. Don't have all the answers right now. I think for me, just clear my head a little bit, but I'm looking forward to finding solutions. Like I said, I played a long time, and my path wasn't the easiest path. And what I loved about the game probably the most was finding ways. And this is a great challenge, and I can't wait to start. And if I'm told otherwise, I feel very confident in my ability to continue that path.
There you go. That was Andrew Burnett on Friday meeting with the media, which I actually was a little surprised by, that he actually went there saying, hey, if I'm not back, I'll go somewhere else and I'll go coach. Good for him. But again, that was, I keep talking about the Predator way. That was the Predator way to a T. Again, didn't ignore the fact that they had a disappointing season, didn't run from it, didn't hide it, just said it was unacceptable. We're going to work hard and we're going to find a way through this, which is what they say all the time. And I said last week on the program, Reed, did I guarantee it last week or did I guarantee it the week before that Andrew Burnett was coming back as the coach?
I think it was the week before. I can check the document.
Okay. So I have guaranteed that Andrew Burnett is coming back as coach, and you cannot undo a guarantee. Once you do the guarantee, you better be right or you have to live with the missing on a guarantee. And I haven't missed on a guarantee in a while. So the last guarantee I missed on was Mike Keith, when I said there's no way I guarantee he's not going to take the Vols job. And then he took the Vols job. So it's been a while. But the point being that last week I was 95 to 100% sure Andrew Burnett was coming back, because that's the way the Predators do business traditionally. But then Jonathan Marchessault came out and fired his shots at the head coach in the media. Steven Stamkos was asked about the season, and he gave some long-winded answer that I'm not sure I could even listen through all the way before I thought, where you going with this, bud? And that takes me back to what Trot said on our show last week when I asked him, okay, can you say today Andrew Burnett's coming back as the coach? And here's what Barry Trotz said. So are you ready today to say, hey, Andrew Burnett is coming back next year as the coach?
No, not at all. I'm going to go through a whole process. Like I said, I'm going to talk to every player. I'm going to talk to every coach. I'm going to talk to all our management, and our decision will be based on that. Ownership, everything. So I owe it to players, myself, management, all the owners. I got to do that process, and there's no time frame for me. Probably next week, once I get through all the meetings, then we'll sort of see where we are and go from there. But Andrew's a good young coach, and part of all this year is based on. I'll put blame on myself, put it on the coaching staff, I'll put it on the players, because we have to do that together, and we didn't get it done.
Okay. So he said he's a good young coach, and he seems to, I believe when I sat down with him on Wednesday, he thought he was bringing him back. But he says, I got to talk to every player. I got to talk to every coach. Got to talk to ownership. Got to talk to everybody. If Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos said to Barry Trotz that Andrew Burnett's got to go, then Andrew Burnett has to go. And after what Marchessault said publicly on Friday, it leads me to believe that he probably said a lot stronger, the same thing, but probably a lot stronger and a lot more direct to Barry Trotz in his exit meeting on Thursday or Friday. And again, if Marchessault and Stamkos tell Barry Trotz that Andrew Burnett has to go, then Andrew Burnett has to go. So I have gone from 95 to 100% to probably about 55%. And the reason why is because as much as Barry Trotz can want to undo the free agent decisions that he made last offseason, and I have no idea if he wants to undo them or not, But he can sit at home and say, oh, God, I wish I didn't sign Marchessault. I wish I didn't sign Stamkos. I wish I didn't bring those guys in there. As much as he could want to do that, it's done. Marchessault probably cries himself to bed every night that he didn't re-sign in Vegas. Stamkos is probably miserable here. But they can't undo it. They're big boys, and they made decisions. And so for Marchessault and Stamkos, they're kind of stuck, right? They're going to be on the Predators next year. And with Barry, he's stuck with that decision too. And if Marchessault and Stamkos are coming up to him saying, yeah, coach got to go, then the coach has to go. That is the definition of losing the room. Barry Trotz made a commitment to those players, whether today he likes it or not. So if Jonathan Marchessault is going to sit there and reference Bruce Cassidy and say, see, that's the example of a great coach and how a great coach adjusts. And yeah, me and him didn't always see eye to eye, but he's a great coach. What's he telling you? What's he saying to Trotz privately? Now, if it's just one guy, then maybe Trotz can rationalize it and say, yeah, Marchessault's a bad egg. He doesn't fit here anyways. We can try to trade him and whatever. But if it's Marchessault and Stamkos, because Forsberg and Yossi, those guys are not cut from the cloth of go upstairs and say, fire the coach. Again, they're your typical Nashville Predator go along to get along types. But Marchessault's not. And I don't know about Stamkos. So if those guys are saying to Trotz, coach got to go, then Trotz doesn't have a choice. He's got to fire the coach because you cannot fire those players, but you can fire your coach. So I got to drop it down a little bit. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And our phone line is by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One text says, stop dancing around it, Jared. Barry Trotz sucks. Worse than Rand Carthon ever sucked. Rand Carthon won 9 games over 2 years. What are we talking about? He fired Mike Vrabel, hired his own coach, and won half the amount of games that he did the year before. It's shameful that you drop your pants for that guy over and over again. Trotz is what's wrong with this team right now. Again, they made the playoffs last year. So you can't argue that Rand Carthon, who never sniffed the playoffs, is better than Barry Trotz. But I will agree with you that if Barry Trotz brings back Andrew Burnett, what it will tell me is this is the same old Predator way that has produced the results of not winning enough for a long time, with the one tiny little exception of when they sold out for PK Subban and for Peter Laviolette. Again, guys that were already established inside the league before they got here. One texter says, I wish Barry Trotz was listening to you. You are 100% correct on the Predator way. Marchessault was spot on. Bruno had the second half of the season to adjust, and obviously he's not the coach who can. You know, there are times where a coach just flat out sucks, where this coach comes in and he would have been bad on all 32 teams. You know, again, I think Rand Carthon's a great example of that. He could have gone anywhere and he'd have been a horrible general manager for everybody. Then there are some guys who are good coaches who either it doesn't work because he can't see eye to eye with the star player, or he does a decent enough job and then he loses the room. That happens in sports. I would argue that's going to be Mike Vrabel's case. Everywhere Vrabel's going to go, he's going to go somewhere and people are going to say, this is the great Mike Vrabel. He is a winner. He is the best. He will do all of that. And then after about 4 or 5 years, they'll get sick of him and they'll fire him. He'll lose the room. I think Andrew Burnett's a good coach, but I think he's lost the room. So, again, I don't think it's as simple as, you know, oh, yeah, no, Marchessault is 100% right, and Bruno had the second half of the season. He didn't adjust. I agree. Every time this year, they're like, okay, well, this is a big moment, and they didn't rise to the occasion. One texter says, I agree that that Andrew Burnett is a stubborn type of coach, and that does not work for these great scorers. One texter says, Barry was fired as Nashville's coach. Now he's the general manager. Says Andrew is a good young coach. They were the worst team in the NHL this past season. Come on, in all caps. So I like Trotz. And I still have faith in Trotz as general manager. And if I didn't have faith, and it's not because he comes on the show every week, if I didn't have faith in Barry Trotz, I would tell you guys. And I stand by that. He is no sacred cow, not on this program. I still have faith in Trotz. But they were awful this past year. And when they hired him, I wanted to move on from the Poyle era so badly that I would have taken anybody to be general manager. I would have taken you to be general manager. But I was hesitant about the idea of the Predators going and grabbing somebody who doesn't have the experience of a general manager, but has the Predator experience. You know, I kind of wanted like Kyle Dubas, who's now in Pittsburgh. And look, Pittsburgh sucks too. But that was who I was kind of circling, saying that's the kind of guy I want to come in here and be the general manager. A guy who's been able to deal with all the drama and bullcrap in Toronto and put together a pretty good team. Come here and see, without the shackles of dealing with the Toronto media, you only have one guy to deal with in town who's going to call you out, me. And I'm not as tough. Trust me. I'm not as tough as the Canadian media. You know, that's what I would have preferred. The first year, I thought Trotz did a very good job. But there is no way to argue that a decade ago you moved on from Barry Trotz because you thought that he was not good enough to be your coach, and then you basically promoted him a decade later. That said, Trotz did do a lot of winning behind the bench and was probably ready for a promotion. But to me, there's no doubt that in this league, they fire coaches left and right. It's time for this one to go. And I'm not sure they'll do it. And I give Jonathan Marchessault full marks, because if he doesn't say that, and the Predators have a press conference this week and they announce Andrew Burnett's returning as coach, then it's everybody, including the media, just goes along to get along. Okay, they'll try better next year. And instead, when Marchessault says what he says, now Trotz is going to have to get up there. If he decides to keep Andrew Burnett on as coach, he's going to have to get up there and answer the questions about whether or not Burnett's lost the room, and how Marchessault can say what he says and that not be interpreted as the coach losing the room. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is a draft prospect who's very much a topic of discussion on this program, very much a topic of discussion as far as the Titans were concerned, but is no longer a part of the Titan discussion. And yet I find it to be the single most fascinating part of Thursday's draft. And I cannot get over the latest ridiculousness surrounding it. You're like, what? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I'm very uncomfortable with what has happened with Shedeur Sanders. I understand it's the NFL draft, and I understand things happen, and you evaluate, you scout, you see what you see. I get that part. We talked about Cam Ward. We went literally from talking about whether or not him or Cam Ward should be the number 1 overall pick, to Shedeur Sanders being a top 3 pick, to Shedeur Sanders possibly falling to number 6. Then we hear number 9 at New Orleans. Now we're talking about the Steelers at number 21. What the hell happened? Last time I checked, he ain't playing the games. Had a pro day that went pretty well. What do you do to drop? And see, I listened to you. I've listened to Prime speaking about this in the past. And of course, Louis Riddick speaking about this. And here's the thing that I want to use this as an opportunity to remind everybody. Primetime Deion Sanders might be the greatest athlete, clearly one of the greatest athletes that we've ever seen in history. Best cornerback ever. We got that part. You know what Ryan Clark and Louis Riddick and others raved about? All the bravado and all of this other stuff, the professionalism, the dedication, the excellence and commitment, all of these intangibles that supposedly we look for in any athlete, especially the quarterback. This brother seems to have it. And as the days progress, his stature or his status seems to dwindle. I find it inexplicable. I find it alarming. And I find it like almost insulting from the standpoint that this is Deion Sanders' son we're talking about here.
Stephen A. Smith cannot believe it. Shedeur Sanders falling in the draft. I find this inexplicable, Stephen A. Smith says. This is Deion Sanders' son, for crying out loud. Now, I got to tell you guys, I don't know how you all feel about Thursday night. I know how I feel about Thursday night. The Titans are going to take Cam Ward. Cam Ward's going to have a press conference. The Titans are going to have a press conference. And by about 7:45, 8 o'clock, I don't know about you guys, but we'll be able to sit in and watch the draft and enjoy the draft with all the business behind us. Now, maybe the Titans make a trade up or something like that, but I'm used to doing these draft shows sitting here thinking, oh my God, when are we going to take a break? Because if we take a break and then the Titans make a trade, we took a break one time thinking, oh, the Titans are nowhere near trading. They trade A.J. Brown. It's like, oh my God, they're on the clock. So I think we'll be able to enjoy the draft as fans just as much as we're Titan fans, because the Titans, we already know what they're going to do. They pick them, we move on. I am fascinated by where Shedeur Sanders goes. And I have said this for months now, that I believe Shedeur Sanders is a TV draft prospect and not a real bona fide elite draft prospect. And Joe Retro gets worked up every time I say that, but I think it's true. Shedeur played for Deion's team. Deion's team gets a lot of attention. Trust me. College Game Day and Fox's kickoff show, they didn't spend a lot of time at Arizona State this past year. But guess who's done a better job in 2 years turning around a worthless program? Kenny Dillingham has done a much better job than Deion Sanders has. But Deion gets you to turn on the TV. Kenny Dillingham does not. So Deion got us all to turn on the TV. We did. His son is the quarterback. His son's shown just enough for you to think maybe there's something there. But he's short. He's slow. He's not physically gifted in any way. He was never a legitimate high-end, top-of-the-draft prospect. And yet, because there was a lack of high-end college quarterbacks this year, and because, again, we watched Shedeur play, he got mentioned with Cam Ward, and it was, okay, Cam or Shedeur, because every year that's what we want. We want two quarterbacks, and we want to argue it out, this guy, that guy. But Shedeur was never that good. And not only that, no matter what they say about how good of a kid Shedeur is, there's always this sentiment that kind of rubs me the wrong way, that Shedeur's head is not in the right place. At his pro day, he wore a T-shirt that had a dollar sign with the squared on it. Well, that's his logo, Jared. I know. Too much about me. Albert Breer wrote this just a while ago at Sports Illustrated, quote, to his credit, talking about Shedeur Sanders, his credit. To his credit, I have heard that he's been more modest the past couple of weeks with teams. Early on, some teams got the impression he was trying to steer his way to certain destinations, and he has left those teams with a better feeling than some over the early parts of the process, i.e., Shedeur acted entitled when he thought he was going at the top of the draft, then found out, actually, these NFL teams don't think you're that good. They actually think you're closer to Tyler Shuck than you are to Cam Ward, and now he's decided to straighten up and fly right. And even last week, it's like Deion and Shedeur, they just can't avoid any type of controversy. Colorado announces they're going to retire his jersey when he, as a starting quarterback, beat one ranked team in 2 years. And Deion turned this into a, why do we have to wait until people die to give them their flowers? And Colorado turned it into Shedeur and Travis have elevated the Colorado program back to relevance. And nobody is arguing that the Heisman Trophy winner shouldn't have his number retired. Not one person is arguing against Travis Hunter getting his jersey retired. It's about Shedeur. And so I am fascinated by where Shedeur may go on Thursday night. And that's if Shedeur goes at all. Breer said the Giants aren't taking him at 3. Then there's New Orleans at 9. And he says he would be surprised if New Orleans at 9 pulled the trigger on Shedeur. Then there's the Steelers at 21. And if he doesn't go to the Steelers, then all bets are off. Well, I mean, surely there's a team with an old quarterback like the Rams or something that said, okay, fine, we have him graded as a high quarterback. Let's take him. But if nobody takes him, well, we lived that with Will Levis. And we lived that with Malik Willis. What will that tell you? So, again, Shedeur talk used to be, I remember at the beginning of this process telling Vingan, hey, man, nothing gets the phones going like Shedeur Sanders talk. But over the last couple of weeks, over the last month, Shedeur's kind of fallen out of favor as far as the Titans are concerned. But I am fascinated by what's going to go down with Shedeur Sanders on Thursday night, and that's if Shedeur gets drafted or not. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in here on the program, we'll get to your phones. Plus, just some advice I give everybody as far as draft week is concerned. We'll hit that next as well. 615-737-1025. This week's Nationals Best Deal is Fog Street Lawn Club, Nashville's premier soccer pub and rooftop. Fog Street Lawn Club offers scrumptious bites, British lawn bowling, and premier soccer pub vibes. Get half off a $30 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals and dive into the ultimate rooftop experience.
my gosh, I'm just so excited. NFL Draft Week is here. I'm going to be hosting an NFL draft coverage on NFL Network for the 22nd time on Thursday night.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
No, it's just great. And going and counting.
And going.
I intend to do it in Pittsburgh next year and so on and so forth. I could stop. I'm hearing the Patriots are going to do the sensible thing and go Will Campbell out of LSU, and that Cam Ward and Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter and Will Campbell will be the first 4 picks of the draft. And then everybody's like, well, then it's going to definitely be Mason Graham, 5th overall. And that does make sense that they take this kid out of Michigan, who I've seen personally and is worthy of the 5th overall pick in this draft. I'm hearing that the Jacksonville Jaguars could go anywhere with this thing.
That was Rich Eisen. Boy, that was a humble brag. This is my 25th year of calling the draft on NFL Network. By the way, Rich Eisen has this radio show. David Reed, you've been doing this long enough. Rich Eisen has this radio show. Does anybody know where they can actually listen to Rich Eisen's radio show?
No, I would lose money if I put anything on the line that I actually know where it's at.
Like, I see the videos all over social media all the time.
That's the only place I see it. I never hear. Listen to Rich Eisen weekdays from 8 to 10 on. No, never hear it.
What channel is it? But again, I digress. So he says, I'm hearing Jacksonville could do anything at number 5. So this is my advice as far as the draft is concerned for this week. And maybe I'm a dope, but I've decided that pretty much everything I hear on TV and social media and radio shows and everything else from now until Thursday, as far as insight is concerned, I kind of ignore. I kind of ignore. This is why I like listening to the former general managers, like the guys that have been in that chair, because they don't tell you what's going to happen. They tell you it basically without saying it. If I was in that spot, here's what would be going through my mind. And I find that insightful. But when I see an Adam Schefter or an Ian Rappaport or a Diana Rossini or one of these insiders, Peter Schrager, I see one of these guys go on TV and start telling us, hey, the Saints love Jackson Dart or the Steelers love Jalen Milroe. I don't buy it. And I'm not going to pretend like I have sources inside the league who tells me, oh yeah, so-and-so loves such and such. So just most of the gossip, I just don't buy. Floyd used to tell me before the draft, he would say, as general manager, you'd have to know which reporters have the best information and which reporters have the best relationships with each individual team. And he used to always highlight John Clayton, the late, great John Clayton at ESPN. He used to say, John has the best information. And I think if you're over the age of 30, you remember John Clayton on TV. And if somebody said, hey, there's Schefter and Mortensen and Rappaport and this one, that one, the one with the best information was John Clayton, I don't think that would surprise you. But I say this because I remember when we were doing the draft show in 2019 on the Plaza at Bridgestone Arena, and I remember hosting that show, and Jacksonville was getting ready to be on the clock, and it was Josh Hines-Allen who had fallen in the draft. And I remember Floyd said, hey, this is going to be tough for Jacksonville because the pass rusher was supposed to be off the board, but they love the tight end. And he was talking about TJ Hawkinson. And I said, are you sure? And he looked at me, he goes, they love the tight end. Now, we all know they ended up taking Josh Hines-Allen, and that was the right decision. But I'm not even going to pretend like I know people in the league that are going to sit there and tell me like, oh, no, so-and-so, they really like such and such. When I hear things change at this point, I think it's all fugazi. I mean, I go back to last year, the day of the draft, Daniel Jeremiah put out his final mock draft at NFL Network. And he had J.C. Latham going number 5 overall to the Chargers. Now, you know me. I would have peed my pants for joy if J.C. Latham had gone at 5 to the Chargers. So I could have taken Joe Alt at 7. But I talked to somebody in the know, and I said, what do you make of this talk about Latham all of a sudden shooting up the board to 5? And they said to me, yeah, Joe Ortiz and Daniel Jeremiah came up as scouts in Baltimore together. I said, interesting. And I think the reason that they said, oh, yeah, no, we're thinking Latham is they wanted to see, okay, does Tennessee love Latham so much that they'll move up from 7 to 5? Let's put it out there. So that's the one thing that I would keep telling you guys this week. Things you hear on TV from the reporters, they're just doing their jobs. And a reporter's job is to report. If Chad Brinker called my phone right now and said, hey, Jared, this is Chad Brinker, and I've decided that we're not going to take Cam Ward on Thursday, we're going to take Travis Hunter, would I not owe it to you to come on the air and say, I'm hearing the tight, and he would say, hey, don't say I said it, but we're not taking Cam Ward. Would I not owe it to you to report it? So right now, everybody's kind of just dipping toes in water, trying to see which way the wind's blowing. So I wouldn't get too caught up in buying, what's being said here, what's being said there. I wouldn't get too caught up in. The Steelers love Jalen Milroe. Okay. By the way, I have to tell on myself for a second. Reed, I totally blew this in my Shedeur Sanders rant in the last segment. We've got to play this cut because I have said Shedeur Sanders is a TV prospect over and over again. Joe Rexrode gets so mad every time I say that Shedeur Sanders is a TV prospect because these guys on TV like Louis Riddick are friends with Deion Sanders, Stephen A. Smith. They don't want to piss him off, so they talk about how great Shedeur is, and then all of a sudden the NFL people say, we don't think he's that good, and now it's like, how? And it's like, because he's not actually that good. You guys need to take your Deion glasses off. Listen to what Peter Schrager said on First Take last week. And again, if you ever wondered if Shedeur Sanders was a TV, this is like wrestling. If he was a real prospect or a TV prospect, listen to what Peter Schrager said about Shedeur Sanders. And again, because Stephen A. Smith can't understand why he's falling as much as he's supposedly falling.
The mock drafts and the media and us talking up Shedeur in that way from the months January, February to March, that did him no favors. So that now if he slides or he goes at 9, which is an amazing honor to be a top 10 pick, or he goes in the teens or the 20s or even in the early second round, it's viewed as some great disappointment. No, use that as a chip on your shoulder, and a team will be very happy to have a motivated Shedeur.
Hey, it's the media's fault. We were the ones that got it. We shouldn't have been mocking him number 3 overall. That's our fault. Well, yeah, because he's a TV prospect, not a real elite high-end NFL draft prospect. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number, 615-737-1025. It's time to get back into the war room, and we will do that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, and let's give away something because I'm in a good mood. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Metallica. That's right, Metallica at Nissan Stadium on Saturday, May 3rd with special guests Limp Bizkit and Ice Nine Kills. Good luck on that. Enjoy Metallica. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and we are less than a week away from the draft. It is what we are calling on this program Cam Ward Week. Why? Because we know the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick on Thursday. And something we did last year that I found to be so much fun were the mock draft simulations. Now, you do know that is what the teams are doing right now inside their draft rooms. They're sitting there. They're trying to gather some last-minute information. You know, is so-and-so's ankle better? Or what are you hearing about so-and-so? Is he a good kid? Is he not a good kid? Whatever. But what they're trying to figure out is, okay, how's this thing going to play out? And let's make decisions now. If this happens, then what? If that happens, then what? And they do mock drafts. They go around the room and they say, okay, you've got the AFC North, you've got the AFC West, you've got the NFC South, and here we go. And let's try to figure out who's going to be available. So last year we did this a bunch with pick number 7, and it led to the whole big discussion of, well, if Drake May falls in the draft, then what? Which led to a lot of you people out there saying, why would you take Drake May when you have Will Levis? Well, it's not so much fun when we know the Titans are going to take number 1 overall. So we're focused more on 35 and the potential of what could be there. And we've already done one simulation in which the Titans ended up with Cam Ward. They traded down out of 35. They ended up with 3 day 2 picks to go with Cam Ward, and they walked away with Braden Swinson, the defensive end out of LSU, at 42. They walked out with Kyle Williams in the 70s and Harold Fannin, the tight end out of Bowling Green State, at pick number 100. It's time for mock draft simulation number 2. Okay, Titans are on the clock. Number 1, we know they're going to take Cam Ward, so we move on from there. Titans on the clock at 35. It's day 2. And shockingly, there are some surprising names that are available. Most notably, Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia, is the best player available. He is a consensus big board guy at about the 20th overall pick. Omar Norman Lott, the defensive tackle at Tennessee, is available. Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State, coming off of an injury, he's available. Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss, is available. And Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle out of Oregon, still available. And let me note, Shedeur Sanders, and again, this is PFF's mock draft simulation, isn't me. Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. Now, you would not be interested in taking Shedeur Sanders since you've already taken Cam Ward. That we understand. But now there has to be a discussion. There are 8 trade calls that are going down. If Malachi Starks falls out of the first round and you're there at 35, do you jump on him and take the 20th best player in the draft, a clean prospect out of Georgia, so we know he's played great competition? Do you just jump on it and say, you know what? I know safety's not a need. Although Amani Hooker gets injured all the time and the other guy's on a 1-year deal. I know safety's not a big need, but this guy could be an impact player. That's the first question you have to have with yourself. 8 trade calls are coming in at this moment in time. The Raiders at 37, the Jets at 42, the Bucks at 53, and the Bills at 56, amongst others. The Bills have 2 second-round picks, by the way, which we should keep in mind. Bills and Seahawks have 2 second-round picks. The Raiders call at 37. They want this pick, and they want it badly. So I say, okay, fine. How about 37 and 68? I'm moving back 2 spots. 37 and 68. And I'll give you 35 and 103. I mean, you got to give them something else to move back 2 spots. But you give me 68 at the top of the 3rd, and I'll give you 103 at the top of the 4th. And keep in mind, I've still got 120 in the 4th as part of the Ernest Jones trade. I figure there's no way they're going to accept this. The Raiders accepted the trade. And they accepted the trade so they could draft Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Jacksonville takes Josh Connerly, the tackle out of Oregon. So I'm on the clock at 37. Again, Malachi Starks is still there. And again, I still think, do you take the best player available? You did just pick up a third-round pick. Do you? A bunch of teams want to trade. Dallas at 44, Arizona at 47, and Buffalo at 56. And again, Buffalo's got 2 second-round picks. So I've already got a mid to high third-rounder at 68. With the Raiders in my 2-pick trade back, Buffalo calls. And so I'm like, all right, fine. Dallas wants me to move back to 44. How about I get 44 and 76? So now I get 2 third-round picks in a second. They decline it. Okay? Arizona, same thing. They've got 47, 78. How about 44 and 141 in the 5th just to move back 3 spots? They say no. Excuse me, to move back 10 spots. They say no. Okay, fine. I'm starting to run out of time here. Buffalo's got 2 second-round picks. 37 and 141. That's in the 5th round to Buffalo for 56 and 62. That would give me 4 top 100 picks this year. Surely they won't take it. I offer 37 to Buffalo. Forget about 141. I keep 141. I offer 37 to Buffalo for 56 and 62, and they accepted. So now I'm on the clock at 56. I've got 56, I've got 62, and I've got 68 in the 3rd round. Top players on the board, Kevin Winston, again, an injured safety out of Penn State. Siobhan Revelle, an injured corner who's coming off of an ACL, so it's not as serious of an injury. Siobhan Revelle, a corner out of ECU. Demetrius Knight, the linebacker out of South Carolina. Carson Swessinger, the linebacker out of UCLA. And Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami. Titans on the clock at 56, and Tennessee selects Siobhan Revelle, the corner out of East Carolina. He should be good to go week 1. Look, I know it's a knee, but it's an ACL. It's not a chronic knee injury. And so, I mean, I think Siobhan Revelle is probably a high end of the 1st round, a 2nd round guy. So I can get him there. I'm okay with that. On the clock at 62. Again, very similar player still available. I don't love this. I ended up selecting Olafemi Oladejo, the pass rusher out of UCLA. Mel had him mocked to the Titans at 35 in his latest mock draft. I'm getting him at 68, or excuse me, at 62. So that's much better value. But again, the guy's got traits, but he doesn't have the production, which makes me nervous. But best pass rusher available, it's Olafemi Oladejo, UCLA. So Siobhan Revelle and Oladejo. And now I'm back on the clock at 68. I turned 35 into 56, 62, and 68. And Elijah Arroyo, Cam Ward's top target at Miami at tight end, is available. So is Jalen Royals out of Utah State. So is Kyle Williams, again, another Cam Ward target out of Washington State. And I ended up choosing Kyle Williams. And this is the 2nd time in the mock draft simulator that Kyle Williams has been there later down in the draft. And I chose Williams simply because he's got speed. Elijah Arroyo, again, he's a tight end, but he's not a good blocking tight end. And I need somebody better than Jig that can block. Elijah Arroyo, Jalen Royals, I need speed. I don't need a possession receiver, and I don't need somebody who's hurt. I am not taking Kyle Williams because he's teammates with Cam Ward, but he's got speed. And the Titans, especially at receiver outside of Ridley, don't have a lot of speed. So that is our 2nd mock draft simulation. And I still am in my head sitting there thinking, would you really pass on Malachi Starks? Especially after adding 68. But that is the 2nd mock draft Stillman and Company simulation. I walk out of day 2. I go to bed on Friday night with Cam Ward, Siobhan Revelle, the corner out of East Carolina, Olafemi Oladejo, the pass rusher out of UCLA, and Kyle Williams, the wide receiver out of Washington State. I don't love it. Darius on the YouTube chat says your mock draft sucks already. Again, I don't love it. I felt much better about the first simulation we did. I think in hindsight, if I could go back and do it again, I probably would go Malachi Starks at 37, even though, again, going BPA here, Malachi Starks at 37, and then take the best edge rusher available at 68. I don't think I can take Starks at 35. But again, these decisions have to get made before the draft starts. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is something that the Titans really, really want to do. They're telling everybody that they want to do it. And I'm not sure it's as important as maybe the fans and the Titans think it is. We'll get to that coming up next. And your phones, 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
Well, here's the problem you have about movement. You pick 1 and 35, and then you don't go again to 103. That is a huge gap in there where I don't know. Let's say you want to get back into the first round. All right, you're going to give up 35 for sure to get in there. All right, and I did it last week. I had an opportunity to do it with Pittsburgh, who moved down to 31. Now, if you're going to give me 35, you're going to have to give me something else that's not 103, 120, 120, none of those. I'm not interested. So then it gets either a next year pick, which I might ask you for your second rounder, or it's going to be a player. And I don't like too many guys on your team. So you're really kind of restricted in the real world here about how to get there.
There you go. That was Pat Kerwin on Sirius XM NFL Radio talking about, hey, if you want to try to get up, I don't think you have the movement to be able to do that. What you need to be worried about is trying to trade back, which, again, in our mock draft simulations, the Titans at 35 have traded the pick in each of the two instances. There has not been a player like Emeka Ibuka, like Matthew Golden, like, again, one of those higher-end players that if they're there, I'm taking them at 35. That's it. But there seems to be this obsession with the Titans and getting back into the third round. And I think it comes from their fans, but I also think it comes from the team. Adam Schefter this morning at ESPN reporting, quote, a team looking for more firepower on Friday night will be the Titans, who in a bit of irony don't have a third-round pick thanks to their own general manager, Mike Borgonzi. Just over a year ago, Borgonzi was the assistant general manager for the Chiefs and a central figure in the trade that sent cornerback L'Jarius Sneed from Kansas City to Tennessee in exchange for a third-round pick. Now Borgonzi has been hired to help build the Titans roster. Borgonzi turned down the Giants' overtures to trade up to number 1 in a package of picks that would have included a third-round pick this year. Now he'll have to see if he can find a way back into that round. And I think there are a lot of Titan fans that are like, got to trade back in the third, got to trade back in the third, want to be in the third, want a top 100 pick, and I understand it. And if there's anybody who should be hammering the Titans for the L'Jarius Sneed trade that cost them this top 100 pick, it's me. Because I'm the one who said, don't do it last year. He's got bad knees. Oh, Jared, you don't understand. Let Rand cook. Okay. We'll see if Sneed ever plays a snap again for the Titans. My money's on, he won't. But again, I struggle with this big desire to get back into the third round just for the sake of getting in the third round. And if I were the Titans, I would be more focused on trying to get a top 60 pick in this year's draft so I can move back into the second and maybe even a second next year. Why? Because there's more value on top 60 picks. This is what Mark Dominic said on Sirius XM NFL Radio. Mark Dominic, the former general manager of the Buccaneers. This is what he said last year, and it has really stuck with me when it comes to the value on the rounds and where the picks are at.
When I was GM of the Bucks, we did some research into it, not statistics, and that would be actually a fun analytic project to do, to be able to have to go back over years and kind of look at the way that you traded up or traded back and what was the success rate. The only thing that we really kind of looked at is right around pick 55 to 60, right in that range. The more picks you can get in that top 60, the better chance just the better you are. So instead of having 2/3, I'd rather have a first and 2 seconds, or, can I trade a 3, 4, and a 5 to go get a 2? Or can I, the other thing that I thought was very important that the draft point charts took a while to actually even come around to was a 5th-year option and how valuable that was to sit there and say, I've got them for 5 years, not 4. That's why I traded up back in the day to take Doug Martin as a running back, because I was like, hey, I've got him for 5 years, plus I've got a tag. I've got a running back for 6 years, which is basically some of their lifespan. That's a really good value. If he plays 6 years here, that's actually pretty darn good that you've got a running back and you've got under control and at a very reasonable cost. So that all being said, I'm a believer trading up is going to be much more beneficial than it was trading back and accumulating picks.
Okay. He's telling you top 60. That's where we see the drop-off, around 55 and 60. And again, it's like I look at Buffalo, and Buffalo's got 2 second-round picks, 56 and 62. I would take them because, again, we're talking about top 60-ish and 62. But I think I'd prefer moving back and trying to get a second next year. And the Titans can do that because it doesn't feel like Chad Brinker or Mike Borgonzi's on the hot seat and has to win right now. Now, some of these general managers they may be talking with, or owners that may be nosing their business into the draft room on Friday night, they may be the type that are impatient and have got to win right now. They may be more willing to deal a second next year as opposed to a high third this year because they get that player today. And then I thought about the Titans. And again, the third round. Now, the Titans haven't done a great job of drafting no matter who the general manager is over the last handful of years, and we all know that. But think about their team, the window they had to succeed. And think about how many of their impact players, Pro Bowl players, were taken in the second round as compared to the third round. We all know Lawan, Conklin, Simmons, all first rounders, all made the Pro Bowl. But Harold Landry was a second rounder. He made the Pro Bowl. Derrick Henry, who's probably the greatest player in the history of the Tennessee Titans since they moved from Houston, a second rounder. A.J. Brown, a second rounder, pick number 51. The Titans in that window had one third rounder who made it to the Pro Bowl and was a big impact player. That was Kevin Byard. That's it. So as much as I hear about wanting to get back into the third round, and I'm not here to say that the third round is irrelevant, but the desperation to get back in the third round, we want more firepower on Friday night, we want to get a third round pick so that we can say we're in the third round, that does not exist for me. Not as much as I would put a value on getting a second rounder in next year's draft. And here's the other thing about what happens when you get a second rounder in next year's draft. The team that you're trading with might suck. And so that might be the 34th pick in next year's draft. So that would be something I would keep my mind on. The Titans, here's what's going to happen is the round one's going to play out. There's going to be guys that are at least there by the third pick, and teams will be calling all day on Friday saying, hey, if our guy gets to you at 35, would you pull the trigger on this trade? If I'm the Titans, almost every discussion about a trade back, and I'm not saying like if you trade back to 37, you're going to ask for a second next year, but if you're going to trade back like around the 40s, I want a second in next year's draft. That's where it starts. And then you decide, what you really want and who you'd be willing to trade it for, because it would probably change your opinion based upon who's available and how much you like them. 615-737-1025. Dustin in Hopkinsville, Kentucky says, Jared, just take the best guy. And you can trade the duplicate for a need, in reference to Malachi Starks. Nobody's going to trade for Amani Hooker. He's making too much money. Nobody would be interested in Xavier Woods, who you signed to a one-year deal and you're just turning around and trading him. So if you were to draft Malachi Starks, here's what I would do. If I was on the clock and I drafted Malachi Starks, which again was the mock draft simulation that we began the hour with, where the Titans were sitting there at 35 and Malachi Starks was on the board, the safety out of Georgia. And then we moved back to 37 and Malachi Starks was still on the board. I'd take him, I'd release Hooker, and then I'd take Hooker's money and I'd go spend it on Mark Andrews. That's what I would do. But you have to know if you're going to be able to do something like that. Jared from Spring Hill says, I don't mind it, but here's Willie Donick's logic for a rebuttal. So since they haven't had any notable third-round picks, they should just never draft in the third round then? Is that what Willie's saying, that they shouldn't draft? I'm just saying I would rather have a second in next year's draft than a third in this year's draft. And a lot of people, because they want things right now, would rather have the third in this year's draft. Well, we got to build it around Cam, and we got to... And I'm telling you, I would be on the phone with these teams saying, let's talk second in next year's draft. That's what I would be talking about. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Chad Brinker will talk tomorrow. Not an AI Chad Brinker, a real Chad Brinker. A real Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan, if you care about that, will be talking tomorrow for the Titans at their pre-draft press conference. Here's what I want to know. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, 1025-1063 The Game.
They are a team with Brian Callahan wants to handpick their quarterback. And like I said, he wants a guy that can throw it all over the yard when everybody knows you're throwing. This guy has the arm talent. GM coming from Mahomes, kind of you see those arm angles that Mahomes throws from. So I think they're trying to hit a grand slam or a home run here. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to swing for the fences here. And that's what they want at quarterback. And like I said, the days of the single double are over. So this is what you're trying to do. You're not taking the best player in the draft, number one here. You're not taking the second, third, fourth best player. Okay. You're probably taking anywhere between the 5th and the 10th best player. Field, I'll ask you. I have Cam Ward at 6. Yep. Where's Cam Ward on your board? I can tell you consensus in the league. Where do you have him?
Yeah, I have him 6. And I think that's probably closer to the high end of where many in the league evaluate him. He does have some huge fans in the NFL, but there are other people that are more skeptical. Actually, Shefty had a column that dropped on ESPN.com today in which he noted one general manager doesn't have a first-round grade on any quarterback this year.
There you go. That was Field Yates and Mel Kiper Jr. talking about Cam Ward. And so I feel like because everybody knows the Titans are going to take Cam Ward, there's not as much debate. But you heard right there where Mel's like, they're going to be overdrafting Cam Ward at number 1. And Field Yates is like, Shefty talked to a general manager who says he doesn't have a single first-round grade on any of these quarterbacks. So at 1 o'clock tomorrow, the Titans will hold a press conference. Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, and Brian Callahan, in that order of importance to me, will all be speaking. Again, that is Brinker, Borgonzi, and then Callahan. And here's what I want to know tomorrow. I heard the Midday Show joke about this, and they said I wouldn't look for a lot of insight in that press conference tomorrow. And I don't necessarily disagree. But here's what I want to know. Number 1, and you have to do when you ask these questions in the press conference tomorrow, you have to ask them very hypothetically. You can't ask, are you going to take Cam Ward? You can't, it's got to be, if you were to do this, then would you that? Number 1, if you take a quarterback, can you guarantee that you will stick with Brian Callahan as the head coach beyond this year, since changing an offense on a young quarterback might stunt his development? And what are your thoughts on firing the coach after a year? And will that stunt the development of a quarterback? Again, it'll be uncomfortable because Callahan will be sitting right there, but I think it needs to be asked. And I'll tell you why. Because what Chicago and what New England are doing, A, I thought were totally avoidable, and B, I think are really bad for the quarterbacks. I was on Sirius XM last year, and I kept saying, why is Matt Eberflus keeping his job in Chicago? If they lose, he'll be out, and now you'll be switching the coach up on Caleb. Why would you do that? And I had some numbnuts call in and say to me, well, Jared, you don't understand. We've hired Shane Waldron to be our offensive coordinator, and he's just the best. I guess that's like the Chicago version of you people. Porth told me Eberflus wasn't on the hot seat entering last year. I'm like, okay, you people. But again, I think it's bad. Look, could Ben Johnson help Caleb? Sure. But wouldn't you have been better off with Ben Johnson being the coach and Caleb spending an entire offseason learning things the Ben Johnson way? And you know the answer to that too. Number 2, how do they, and again, this is a question for Brinker and I guess maybe Borgonzi. How do they feel about their careers being determined simply by this pick? Their careers being defined by this pick. Chad Brinker is in charge. And while he may be able to get out of blame with Amy, the way he apparently has gotten out of blame for the disastrous 2 seasons he was a part of, I am not going to let Chad Brinker get out of the blame for this. He's in charge. Now to Mike Borgonzi. He's not in charge. When I see Adam Schefter write about Borgonzi and negotiations and Borgonzi doing this and Borgonzi, I'm thinking, what are you talking to him about? I don't want to talk to Semi. I want to talk to Akeem. Again, Brinker's the one who's in charge, but Borgonzi signed up for it to be this way. So in my opinion, if they blow this pick, if Cam Ward sucks, they both get fired, and they should both get fired. And if you don't like it, don't take the job. Number 3, who does Cam Ward? And again, you can ask this question because while they haven't drafted Cam Ward, and they're not going to confirm or deny that they're going to draft Cam Ward, they're not going to do it simply because the draft is a TV show and they want there to be some intrigue. But when evaluating Cam Ward as a prospect, who does he remind you of? And another one that would be great is, how does his grade compare to previous quarterbacks you've evaluated? For Brinker, where was he on Mahomes? I don't know. For Brinker, does he look at him and say, oh, you know, I see some Jordan Love there? Because Jordan Love ain't good enough for the number 1 overall pick for me. Number 4, and this may just be like a nerdy thing that I care about that many of you don't care about, but I do wonder this. How much have they prioritized the medical evaluation compared to years past? The reason being is that in most situations, a new general manager would get up there, and if you asked me about a question, how would you compare the medical evaluation this year and its importance to the medical evaluation last year? That general manager would say to you, a new guy, well, I can't speak on what happened before I got here. But guess who doesn't have that luxury? Brinker. Why? Because Brinker was here. Again, no matter how much they try to brainwash you and pretend to you that Brinker wasn't here, that Brinker didn't do anything, or that Brinker just sat in his office eating bonbons while Rand Carthon ran the franchise into the ground, the reality is Brinker was here. So how much have they prioritized the medical? Because it seemed like they weren't all that interested in quarterback, and it seemed like they were kind of hot and heavy for Abdul Carter. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, at the combine, it was, he's hurt, and they love Cam Ward. And then finally, this is a question I would ask. Are they planning on having L'Jarius Sneed on the field next year? Again, I'm not asking you about his legal situation. We are aware of the situation. We released a statement. We've sent it to the league. We can't say anything more on that. I didn't ask you about that. I asked you, do you anticipate him being on the field? Or is corner now a need in the draft? That's what I wonder. Again, the bigger questions, the ones about like, you know, are you going to take Cam Ward? They're not answering. What positions are deep in this draft? I already know what positions are deep in the draft. They've already told us. It's deep at edge rusher. It's deep at tight end. It's deep at running back. How bad do you want to trade down from 35? And they'll get asked all of these questions. And again, my questions are a little bit more specific. Do you feel like if you draft a quarterback, you've got to stick with Brian Callahan? Because you don't just want to all of a sudden just flip it around. Oh, there we go. Now, oh, we thought we were going to have him. Now we don't. Those are my questions there. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. One texter into the text line says, I'll be honest. I think we are reaching on taking Cam Ward, the 12th best player at number 1 overall. I want to be wrong about this. Do you see the Titans on draft night trading a pick for a player? If so, whom? Could it be a veteran tight end to help out Cam Ward? I think that they will probably make the move when it comes to veteran players after the draft. I don't think it'll be on draft night. All of a sudden, Mark Andrews is going somewhere else. Unless they trade Simmons, which I'm not shutting the door on. As much as it feels like it would be crazy for them to trade Simmons, and I would be against trading Simmons, and I don't even like Simmons, and Simmons doesn't even like me. As much as I would be against that, I mean, I do think that would be one you'd have to trade during the draft because you'd want those picks now. But I don't think we'll see, just for the Titans, I don't think we'll see those kind of moves at this point. One texter says, why can't you accept that Chad Brinker is the problem? It wasn't Rand. Mike Borgonzi has his hands tied too. Well, let me say this. I don't have a lot of faith in Chad Brinker. I don't know what Chad Brinker thinks of me, Sometimes I'm sure he's, we've had some interactions over the years, whatever. But I have no idea what Chad Brinker thinks of me. I have no idea if Chad Brinker thinks that I talk to him in good faith, which I think I do. I don't know if he thinks I talk about him in good faith, which, again, I think I do. I am very much against the current structure of the Titans front office, and I think I've been pretty vocal in that. I don't think Chad Brinker did anything as assistant general manager to earn a promotion when Rand Carthon got fired, because that's really what this is. What happened was Rand got fired and Chad became the general manager. That is, again, forget the semantics about titles. That's what really happened. And Mike Borgonzi, I don't even know why he took this job. If Mike Borgonzi was my friend and he called me and he said, do you think I should take this job? I say, stay in Kansas City and get a job next year. In fact, what Borgonzi should have done is he should have been offered the job and they should turn it down. But that's their business. But it's hard for me to believe that Rand didn't earn his own firing. I mean, everything he did was a disaster. Pretty much everything. Ridley, Brownlee. Other than that, it was pretty much train wreck. Especially when you consider the Snead thing, which again, I think was a Rand derivative. One texter says, aren't middle management positions the ones to take the fall for bad decisions by upper management? I actually think the way that the Titans would love this to play out is if this were to be an unbelievable disaster. Like, let's say Ward stinks. All of a sudden, you're going to hear, well, it was really Brinker who wanted it, not Borgonzi. And I could see Borgonzi trying to save himself, or I could see the fans trying to save him. Well, he is not the one who totally made the decision the way they did with Vrabel and Rand. I don't want there to be any ambiguity. If you fail on this, you're all gone. That's what I believe. But again, what I believe and what they do, just not the same. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. The least surprising broken news of the weekend. We'll hit that next, and then we're back to your Titans thoughts. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106 through the game. Stillman and company, it's Cam Ward week, and the Predators may or may not fire their coach. I mean, in all seriousness, both are kind of a big story. If they fire the coach, then that's a big story. If they don't fire the coach, that's a big story. But there was a story that came out over the weekend, a breaking news as far as the college circuit is concerned, that breaking news, Nico Iamaleava has committed to UCLA. Breaking news from Pete Thamel. Breaking news on your Twitter. Breaking news on, I got to tell you, and I know Caroline has accused me of being a college football hater in the past, which I think is kind of bullcrap. But I have to say, I've kind of got Nico fatigue at this point. I'm kind of over it. All the talk about, can you believe that Nico and Nico's dad, and did you hear what TJ Hushmanzada said, and did you hear what Nico's handler said, and Nico could, I'm over it. Everybody's made their decisions. Nico asked for more money. He didn't get it. He decided to transfer. Now Tennessee has to find a quarterback. Anything else, in my opinion, is just all bullcrap. It's all just keeping the story afloat. I don't care what Nico's dad says. Clearly, everything that Nico's dad has said up to this point is the opposite of the truth. So I don't really care. I don't care what TJ Hushmanzada heard from Nico's dad, who, again, has been caught lying multiple times over the last 2 weeks. I don't care what Nico's handler, who is not an agent, who is not a lawyer, who should not be negotiating on his behalf. I don't care what he has to say to try to make the situation look better. I don't care about Tennessee's gimmicky offense. I don't care about any of that. I'm just over it. Nico made a choice. I don't care about Nico's Instagram and how I can't understand pretty much anything he types anyways. I don't care. And I know the diehards in Knoxville, they'll continue to tell stories about there was an autograph session where Nico didn't want to sign autographs, but he had to because he was paid to by NIL, and then he picked up the phone and he called his dad, and his dad cussed out the people at the autograph session, which, by the way, is very convenient to be telling all of us now. I would have been telling people when it happened, especially if it happened to me. But again, like I said, convenient. Oh, well, Nico, he's got this and I don't care. Now, I'll care in the fall. If he goes to UCLA and he lights it up, which I would be shocked by, then maybe I'll care. If Tennessee can't win a game and you guys want to do a 180 on Josh Heupel, and before you say we won't do it, or before you say, Jared, we're not that fickle, we're not that crazy. I remember when you all were telling me that Jeremy Pruitt was inking a contract extension because Tennessee wanted to show that if Alabama ever called, Jeremy Pruitt would be loyal to Tennessee. And then 3 months later, you all wanted him fired. So if that were to happen in the fall, then yeah, maybe we revisit some of this stuff and it matters a little bit more. But right now, I'm over it. There is not a single thing, minus some sort of scandal, something wild in nature, that could get me to care about this anymore. As far as I'm concerned, UCLA isn't going to play a single game on a TV channel that I will watch this upcoming fall. I can't remember the last time I watched a UCLA football game, and I'm not planning to watch any future UCLA football games. So what do I give a rat's ass for this about? Nico made a choice. His choice was to move on. I could say, I wish him the best, but I don't really care. If he turns out to be a star, I'm not going to be upset about it. But again, this isn't my team. But as far as the daily Nico, I mean, that was fun, but at this point, I'm kind of over it. And so when I saw yesterday, I saw everybody yesterday, breaking news. I'm like, okay. We've been talking about Nico to UCLA for like 4 days. I want to say it was on Wednesday that on 3. By the way, crystal ball on 3. Congratulations. Way to go, you morons. North Carolina, 100%. But out after that, after it was, oh my God, would Belichick take Nico? Then it turned into, yeah, he's going to UCLA. Fine, whatever. It's kind of odd that his family, who, again, he's a big boy, so this should be about him and it shouldn't be about his pops, but apparently it is about his pops. They turned their back on UCLA to go to Arkansas already, and now they're back. I don't care. Do not care. I will say this, though, as I look up to the sky. Hey, old man, what do you think about Nico quitting on UT for more money and now being the quarterback of your team? Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. Boy, I bet he's, again, I don't like talking about what Floyd would say, but my God, he would hate this. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number, 615-737-1025. Something that scares me about Cam Ward does not matter to you people. But is it me? Is it what's scaring me about Cam Ward that's a problem? Or is it you people willfully wanting to stick your heads up your own rear ends? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee 3 days from today. We will be live at Twin Peaks ahead of round 1 of the NFL draft, and we will be 2 hours away, and probably 2 hours and 7 minutes or so away from Roger Goodell walking to the podium and announcing that Cam Ward will be the next quarterback of the Tennessee Titans with the first overall pick. I've accepted it. In fact, I guaranteed it months ago. When they did not go after a quarterback in free agency, I said, well, they're going to take Cam. And since then, little by little, every day, Titan fans have gotten on board with the idea that Cam Ward is the man, that he is, as Louis Riddick said, the next Mahomes. And people love it. And again, anything's possible in the NFL. There have been guys out there that were picked with the last pick in the draft that a year later would start the Super Bowl. There was a guy in the 6th round who's the greatest player that ever lived. I get it. But I'm not sold on Cam Ward. You know that. And when I say I'm not sold on Cam Ward, you think it's because I'm a hater, even though I love the Titans probably as much or more than many of you. I would love for the Titans to get the next great quarterback. But again, we have to discover and determine if Ward's actually that guy. And who would know better than people that have actually done this for a living and done it well? I turned on ESPN this morning because I wonder what the discussion's going to be on Monday before the draft. It was Damian Woody and Dan Orlovsky talking about who should be quarterback of the Giants. Two people whose opinions I couldn't give a rat's ass about. I mean this with all due respect to Derek and to Chris. But former players, they know what they did. They don't know how to run a team. The guys that have run teams, they know how to run a team. And I may be biased because I did this show with a general manager every day. And every day I felt like we learned something new. Listening to him talk about, well, what you want to do in this situation, or, well, I learned this lesson the hard way when I did this. That I just think the guys that run teams and have done this know more than the guys that haven't. And the guys that run teams don't seem so sold on these quarterbacks. For instance, Bill Polian this morning on Sirius XM NFL Radio says not only is Cam Ward not Peyton Manning, you should hear who he says he's also not.
In a year where there are no Peyton Mannings, there are no, not even in Jared Goff's, for example, you're saying, well, okay, everybody said, I'm not sure I want to draft a quarterback in the top 5. Maybe you do because you have a grade on whoever the top guy is, and the next guy after that, I don't think anybody's getting drafted in the top 5. So there's a little leavening taking place, but the position is so important that you can, as a GM, you can justify in your mind going up and taking him. We better take him here. We have a conviction on him. If we don't take him here, we're not going to get him. So that's the way people look at it.
He's saying, yeah, GMs talked themselves into this because he's not Peyton Manning. He's not even Jared Goff as a prospect. Meanwhile, Thomas Dimitrov, who's now the CEO of Sumer Sports, he was general manager of the Falcons for 13 years. He drafted one quarterback, Matt Ryan. I think he was pretty good. Thomas Dimitrov on the Sumer Sports draft show said this when it came to the Titans and taking Cam Ward.
The boxed in 1-1 situation. And I remember talking quite a bit about this team and where they're going to be. And that exactly what you're saying. That's a great spot when you know you have the leeway to move down. It's a weird feeling, but you feel like there's a little less pressure on you even though there's pressure on all sides where they're sitting, of course, they have a quarterback, as you can imagine, that they're targeting here. At least that's what everyone's been saying with Cam Ward. A lot of ability with this guy, right? Ability to game break, ability to move, the dual threat element of a guy like this. I mean, I know there are other people that are arguing Shedeur Sanders there, but I think the Cam Ward situation is attractive. I wish that they had an opportunity to move to 10 and get someone else there, because I think it would be great for their franchise.
Okay. He says all these things and he goes, I think it'd be good for them to move out of that pick. I think it'd probably be good for them to move back to 10 and take somebody else. And then finally, Rick Spielman. He was a general manager for 17 years. He is now the senior advisor to the general manager of the New York Jets. But before he took the job with the Jets, he was hosting a CBS podcast, which, by the way, Ran Carthon now co-hosts. And thus, no disrespect, but I've stopped listening to it. But Rick Spielman, the same guy that said, hey, you can't take a blue player in J.C. Latham and flip him to left tackle and expect him to be that same kind of player. The same guy that said, hey, you can't take a D tackle that doesn't pressure the quarterback with the 38th pick. Rick Spielman, on the With the First Pick podcast in January, before leaving to go to the Jets, Rick Spielman had this comparison for Cam Ward.
What's your comp for Cam Ward?
I'm not going to go off my comps, what I said earlier. I think he is a better version of a Tyrod Taylor. That's where I'm going to lay in my comp right now. I think he's going to go one of the top 2 picks. Not that he deserves it, because I do think there are better players at their position than he is as a quarterback. But the premium on the position, I'm not saying he's going to get overdrafted, but, who needs a quarterback in the top 2? Both of them do.
I would love for all of these guys to be wrong, because I love the Titans. And if you think I love being right, which I do you know what I hate? When the Titans suck. I had a lot more fun covering the team in 2019 and 2020 and 2021 than I ever did in 2024, when I was right about PT at right tackle, and I was right about L'Jarius Sneed's knees, and I was right about everything else. So I'd love to be wrong. But I have to ask a serious question for most of you out there. I want us to take a second. I want us to be honest, intellectually honest with ourselves. Who do you think is more right? Those guys or Chad Brinker? Bill Polian is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And they don't just put general managers in there like candy. You can only put one quote-unquote contributor who's not a player into the NFL every year. That's why Robert Kraft has not gotten into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's hard for a general manager to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he's in there. He's been to 6 Super Bowls as a general manager. He drafted 3 quarterbacks, Jim Kelly, Peyton Manning, and Kerry Collins, who have all started a Super Bowl. I think he knows a thing or two about ball. Thomas Dimitrov was the Falcons general manager for 13 seasons, went to a Super Bowl, went to 2 conference title games, and again, drafted 1 quarterback with his first top pick, Matt Ryan, who was there all 13 seasons. He was the general manager and was a league MVP. And finally, there's Rick Spielman. Again, he's currently the senior advisor to the Jets, helped them hire their general manager. He was a GM for 17 years. His last first-round pick was Christian Darrisaw. The one before that was Justin Jefferson, who happens to be the best receiver in the NFL. He drafted Adrian Peterson, who's going to wear a gold jacket, and made 2 conference finals. So again, whose opinion do you trust more? Those guys with their skins on the wall, or Brinker, who, again, the best thing he's done on his resume is be what, 4th, 5th in command at the Green Bay Packers? Every single one of these guys is cautioning you like, I mean, he's not Manning, he's not Jared Goff, but, general managers talk themselves into this. yeah, I think that Cam Ward's got some talent there, but I think it'd be better for them if they could trade back to the 10th pick. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a better version of Tyrod Taylor, who's a backup. It reminds me of the 2020 offseason during COVID when there was no hockey and there was no anything else. And so it was basically just football speculation all day. Because we had the draft, and then after we had the draft, we had all the football speculation of so-and-so says the Steelers are this guy. They did an entire day on a schedule release, and everybody was jazzed up for it. And I remember the Titans, almost on a daily basis, there was a new nugget. There was some new insight about Jadeveon Clowney. And you people kept talking yourselves into Clowney. Oh, my God, Jared, we need him. Oh, my God. He's got the #1 pass rush win rate per ESPN's advanced analytics. And the old man just sat there at my old house on the couch, and he just sat there and said, but he doesn't sack the quarterback. And everybody kept saying, oh, Floyd, it doesn't matter. Clowney, he's the man. And after they signed him, you got to remember, John Robinson was his guy. He got John Robinson that job. And after they signed him, Floyd said, I wouldn't have done it, but, and then talked about why they did it. And I, at this point in my career, was old enough to realize the I wouldn't have done it. It's almost like mafia talk, where somebody doesn't just directly say, kill him, but they're saying it without saying it. I wouldn't have done it was as close as he's going to get to, I can't believe John Robinson did that. But he hadn't been in the game in 10 years. What did old man Floyd Reese know? So when it comes again to all these people talking about Cam Ward, Polian has no agenda. It doesn't do Polian any good to badmouth Ward, to say that he's not even Jared Goff as a prospect. Dimitrov has no agenda. In fact, Dimitrov was trying to say nice things about him. When we played that cut, he's like, yeah, I've had a lot of conversations. Yeah, because he interviewed for the job. He's trying to say nice things, but he's like, yeah, I think they should get to 10. And Spielman wasn't working in the league, and this was at the beginning, and he said, yeah, I think he's a better version of Tyrod Taylor. And you think Chad Brinker knows better than they do? You think Mike Borgonzi knows better than they do? So, again, we're trying to be intellectually honest when it comes to this. This program is popular because, in my opinion, I think it's popular because of its honesty. On what planet are we living on where we don't think their opinions matter, and where this shouldn't caution us? People that have done the job successfully, much more successfully, much more experienced than your guys, and they are telling us, guys, be careful. This isn't even Jared Goff as a prospect here. I have not looked at the text line. I've not looked at the YouTube chat. My guess is people are not very happy about this. But maybe I'm just biased to former successful general managers because I worked with a former successful general manager, and there were a lot of lessons I learned over the years that I look back on, and people even now are like, oh, who cares about the 40 time? You can see it on tape. Yeah, I watched my team draft Corey Davis with the 5th overall pick, and Corey Davis couldn't run. I care about the 40 time. On what planet are we living on that these opinions just don't matter? Who cares what old man Polian has to say? He's only won about a gazillion more games than Chad Brinker has. Come on now. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction to this. Plus, I do have, speaking of Polian, I have a bone to pick with the Robbie and Retro program over what I think is beneath their intellectual status. We'll hit that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. It's 1025-1063 The Game.
there's a little soothsaying there that you got to do as a general manager, and you recognize that the need for that position is so overwhelming, and the odds against hitting on it are so long that it forces you to kind of go up and make the pick that way, even though everything in your body says, I don't want to do this. I'd rather the guy we're picking is really the sixth pick, 1 through 6. He's probably number 6, but we need the position. We don't have it, et cetera, et cetera. You rationalize, and that's become the norm.
That was Bill Polian this morning on Sirius XM NFL Radio saying what happens is these general managers talk themselves into guys that aren't that good, and then they reach a quarterback, and that's how you screw up. And I think we all know that's happened a lot around the league. But again, I can't get over this idea when it comes to Polian and Dimitrov and Spielman that are like, yeah, I don't know about Cam Ward there. He's not even Jared Goff. That it's like, oh, these guys, they don't know anything. No, they don't this, they don't. And I'm like, really? Bill Polian? Like the guy with the gold jacket? The guy who drafted Jim Kelly in Buffalo and they went to 4 straight Super Bowls? The guy that drafted Manning? When it wasn't a slam dunk to take Manning over Leaf. As much as it is in hindsight to say Manning over Leaf, it wasn't as much of a slam dunk. That guy? He didn't know what he's talking about? And then the one that got me was this morning, the Robbie and Retro program. Joe's one of these guys that was sitting there bitching about the 40 time. Now, I used to think that the 40 was just the underwear Olympics too. I used to just think, oh, yeah, who cares? Troy Williamson ran a fast 40, and he went in the NFL, and he didn't do anything. And I used to think that. I used to think that the 40 time didn't matter. And then we did a segment called the Floyd Reese Draft Academy. And the old man said, if you did not run the 40, he would not draft you, period. And I said, really, it's that serious? I go, what if somebody's injured? He's like, not drafting him. I said, well, but can't you watch the tape to see if people are fast? He's like, yeah. And then you see a guy and you look at the tape and you think that guy's fast. And then you realize the guy that he's playing in college is never going to play in the NFL. And so he's not going up against NFL competition. And he's outrunning a bunch of guys that are 5 flats. And now he gets in the NFL. He can't run by anybody. He says, that's not going to do you any good. I said, okay. I watched the Titans draft Corey Davis. Never ran a 40. Had an ankle injury coming out. Didn't work out at the combine. Didn't work out at a pro day. Didn't run a 40. And I remember asking John Robinson after he drafted him, I said, well, how do you know how fast he is? You've never seen him run. He goes, well, we can watch tape, see how fast they run. I'm like, uh-oh. And I think we can all agree. Corey Davis, not a burner. And Bill Polian, again, I think he knows what he's talking about, said he would not draft a wide receiver who did not run faster than a 4.51. If you are not a 4.51, 4.52, you're not on the Colts. 4.51, you got a shot. So Teteroa McMillan out of Arizona is at best a 4.55. There is some talk that he's more 4.57, 4.59. He's slow. And I'm just telling you, Bill Polian would not draft him. And Robbie and Retro this morning were just crapping on the idea that, again, Bill Polian would say, hey, this guy would not be on the Colts. Because, again, I guess they know better than Bill Polian does. Here's what they said this morning.
You can find so many examples of great 40 time, no production, troubling 40 time, didn't mean a damn thing.
Stilly says that Bill Polian wouldn't take anybody at receiver that didn't run a 4.51 or higher.
Yeah. So Bill Polian wouldn't take Jerry Rice. Great. I want to listen more to him then. And I know he's obviously has a good track record, but that's just, to me, that's just stupid rule. Can you play football?
Stilly loves him some Bill Polian. I've noticed that over the last couple of weeks.
I mean, how much, shouldn't there be like some sort of a cap? How about a cap on Bill Polian quotes on our radio station? Cap.
Bill Polian said.
Cap. Nice.
615-737-1025.
Let's get Rick Spielman in there. Oh, my goodness.
So I have to ask, really? You're going to knock Polian? Like, I mean, just ask yourself this question. Who knows more about football, you or Bill Polian? Who knows more about the Force, you or Master Yoda? And this speaks, I think, to a much larger problem we have both in the world and in the NFL, which is I think that there are a lot of people on this planet that live in a different world than I do. I live in the information world, and a lot of other people apparently want to live in the affirmation world. In the information world, curiosity rules the day. Finding a solution to a problem without reverse engineering from the desired outcome. So let's use Teteroa McMillan and his 40 time, for example. If you love Teteroa McMillan and he ran a bad 40 time, which then says he's probably not going to be that good, what you will then do is you will reverse engineer and say, well, Jerry Rice didn't run this. And that's, again, because you want the affirmation of the desired outcome. I was hot for Abdul Carter. Take him number one if you have to. Abdul Carter. And then all of a sudden, Abdul Carter went to the combine and he had a shoulder injury and a foot injury. And I said, no, thank you. He's got to work out at the pro day. He's got to do real drills. He's got to show that foot. If I'm going to draft him, he better do all that. Again, those are just hard, fast rules. Because I learned the hard way that if you take injured players, you'll end up with Corey Davis and Caleb Farley and Julio Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. And while Jeffrey Simmons has been a solid player for the Titans, I wouldn't say that all the injury misses have been justified by Simmons being a solid or above average player over the 6 or 7 years he's been in the league. But again, that's the information aspect where I'm going to go look to these guys that I know have a clue. Again, Polian, a gold jacket. I asked ChatGPT because Bill Polian won 229 games in his NFL career. And Chad Brinker with the Titans has won 9 games over the last 2 years. And I said, how many seasons would it take Chad Brinker to get to 229 wins? It would take 51 NFL seasons in order to reach 229. But yeah, this guy, he doesn't know anything. He only built those teams. He doesn't know anything. When he took over the Colts, they had the number 1 pick. They were the worst team in the NFL. But he said Lamar Jackson could be a running back. Oh, okay. I got it. You know more than he does. But again, I live in the information world. The affirmation world is an echo chamber. It's what social media and cable news have become. They dominate this space. They tell you what you want to hear. Hey, Tom Brady was picked number 199 in the draft, so what do any of these guys know? What do these guys know? They don't know anything. I don't live in that space. When you guys all decided to go live in that space, we called that the summer of toxic positivity. You all went through it last year. Will Levis can be a franchise quarterback because the offensive coordinator who's never called a play from the Cincinnati Bengals, who's nicer than the previous coach we had that 2 years ago was coach of the year, told us so. We drafted a right tackle with the 7th overall pick to play left tackle, but it will work because our offensive line coach, who has a good reputation, told us it would. We're going to try Traylon Burks at wide receiver for the 1900 billionth time, and we think we're going to get a different outcome. We're going to play Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle, even though he stinks and was unavailable last year, because we believe that we will get a better result this year. Toxic positivity. Taylor Lewan talking about the boys are going to win the South this year. No, the boys are going to pick first. By week 3, when Malik Willis walked into Nissan Stadium and took the bone out of the Titans' tushes, everybody knew, oh my God, Jared was right. Because for an entire summer, everybody wanted affirmation. And I kept providing information. So when I hear Joe Retro act like, why do we have to hear Bill Polian? We need to stop running Bill Polian cuts. The more I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's never listen to the experts. They don't know what they're talking about. I guess they just sit back and just, let it go. 615-737-1025. There are a lot of phones on this. I'm just telling you. I'm on as far as I am concerned. You guys can keep telling me that I shouldn't care what Polian says. I shouldn't care what Dimitrov says. I shouldn't care what these other general managers that have done it and done it well say. But I do. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number of the program, 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
They are a team with Brian Callahan, wants to handpick their quarterback. And like I said, he wants a guy that can throw it all over the yard when everybody knows you're throwing. This guy has the arm talent. GM coming from Mahomes, kind of you see those arm angles that Mahomes throws from. So I think they're trying to hit a grand slam or a home run here. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to swing for the fences here. And that's what they want at quarterback. And like I said, the days of the single double are over. So this is what you're trying to do. You're not taking the best player in the draft, number one here. You're not taking the second, third, fourth best player. Okay. You're probably taking anywhere between the 5th and the 10th best player. Field, I'll ask you. I have Cam Ward at 6. Yep. Where's Cam Ward on your board? I can tell you consensus in the league. Where do you have him?
Yeah, I have him 6. And I think that's probably closer to the high end of where many in the league evaluate him. He does have some huge fans in the NFL, but there are other people that are more skeptical. Actually, Shefty had a column that dropped on ESPN.com today in which he noted one general manager doesn't have a first-round grade on any quarterback this year.
There you go. That was Mel Kiper and Field Yates. Again, I think a lot of people just accepted the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward number 1, but Mel's like, it's an overdraft. They're trying to do what the Bills did with Josh Allen, but the Bills drafted Josh Allen at 7. They're trying to do what the Chiefs did with Mahomes, but they drafted him at 10 and they sat him on the bench for a year and they had a full plan. Instead, it's nope, we're going to take him number 1 overall and we're going to stick him out there and we don't care. What people that have done this job and have done this job well, we don't care what they have to say about it. Aren't you guys, like, kind of weary of that? And immediately, my Twitter has erupted with people that are like, yeah, Bill Polian, he didn't think Lamar Jackson was any good. He's a dumbass. Yeah. A gold jacket, 229 wins, 6 Super Bowl appearances, a championship. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Again, you're going to get some right. You're going to get some wrong. The idea that everybody is wrong on Cam Ward and the Titans are right, good luck. You know, it would be one thing. Again, I asked this question when it came to Polian and it came to Dimitrov and I said, so do you trust Chad Brinker over those guys, over Rick Spielman, over Bill Polian, over Thomas Dimitrov? And it's hilarious to me because the answer, I don't. Because I wanted them to clean house and go hire Rick Spielman or clean house and go hire Thomas Dimitrov. But last year, the Denver Broncos drafted Bo Nix in the first round, and I was floored, as were a lot of people. But the difference between Chad Brinker and Sean Payton when it comes to quarterback decisions, yeah, Sean's earned the benefit of the doubt. And we'll see with Bo Nix. He had a very good first year. I also lived through Vince Young, who after 1 year I thought was the freaking truth. So we'll see. But this idea that, oh man, these guys don't know anything. Yeah, these guys are all dumb. Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Cameron goes, Jared effing Goff. Because once again, Bill Polian said that there's no Peyton Manning in this draft and there's no Jared Goff in this draft. He said, Tyrod Taylor, we're getting ready to do this again. The Titans have to stop being reactive. They have to make an actual plan. Tank or trade up when there is a quarterback there worth taking instead of saying, well, these are the only clowns that are available, so we have to take one. That is how I feel. I believe when it comes to the NFL that it is not an accident. Mike Greenberg went on a rant this morning on ESPN about how of like the last 12 MVPs, there's really only like 4 guys that have won it. There's Allen, Mahomes, Jackson, Brady, and Rodgers in like the last decade that have won the MVP award because Jackson's won it twice and Brady's won it twice and Rodgers has won it twice. And so it kind of, dilutes it. But those are the only guys that have won MVPs lately. None of them were taken number 1 overall. In fact, in the case of Brady, he wasn't even taken, as we all know, in the first round. Lamar was taken with the last pick of the first round. And I thought about that today, and I'm like, I think part of this, I do think part of this is there are guys that probably have the talent to be as good as those other guys, But their teams are so stupid, and they either A, pick the wrong guy, B, give them the wrong coach, or C, screw them up. And then I think about the Browns and the Jags and you mean to tell me that Trevor Lawrence couldn't have been that good? Or was it Jacksonville hiring Urban Meyer that screwed up the whole deal? Like, Baker couldn't have won a league MVP. If you had put Baker on a real franchise and not one run by this moron in Cleveland, Baker couldn't have won an MVP. And so when it comes to the Titans, it's like the Titans have to be like Cincinnati. Cincinnati's the only team in the league that has a quarterback, well, maybe Houston, that has a quarterback because of their own stupidity, and their own stupidity has not gotten in the way of this quarterback. You could argue Washington, but everybody's been fired in Washington. Dan Snyder's gone in Washington as the owner, the team president, the GM, the coach, they're all gone. But again, the Bengals got the number one pick because of their own stupidity. They've been bad for 30 years. They got Joe Burrow. 2 years later, they're in the Super Bowl. That's a special case. That is the exception, not the rule. Cleveland's had multiple number one picks. They can't do anything. They drafted a good quarterback and then sold it all for Deshaun Watson. Jacksonville got the generational talent. Andrew Luck, John Elway, Peyton Manning, and this guy. And they made the playoffs once. And it's like, of course, 9 times out of 10, the year that you stink will not be the right year to stink, because that's the year that you get Bryce Young, or that's the year that you get Jameis Winston, or that's the year that you get an okay quarterback, but not a great quarterback. And it has to be the right year in that given decade to where you get the guy. And your own organizational incompetence cannot stop you. And the Titans got the wrong year. That's what it feels like to me. I told you all today, I said, if I heard at tomorrow's press conference that the Titans actually had the balls to say, hey, if we take Cam Ward number one, which we're not saying we're going to do, because they're not going to say, no. If we take him number one, we're going to sit him on the bench. I would just be elated, because it would tell me that they have a plan on how to develop Cam with his talent. Whereas it really does feel like, yeah, we're just going to draft this guy number one. We've got no second receiver for him. We have no tight end for him. And we've got a head coach on the hot seat that we really want to fire. And after this year, we will fire him. Boy, I'll tell you, that sounds like it's going to work, especially considering that as a prospect, he's apparently not even as good as Jared Goff. It makes me nervous. One texter says, you are going hard against Cam Ward, but listeners are going to roast you when he excels. I welcome it. Again, I am a Titan fan. And this isn't, to me, any chance. Like, there isn't, to me, any instance here when it comes to, like, Cam Ward, where I think this is about the player as much as I think it's about the reach. I think Cam Ward's a first-round talent. And Cam Ward, I even said this after I watched the tape, which I said, look, because there were people that want to compare him to Levis that say, oh, here we go again, another hero baller with a powerful arm. I mean, we've already seen that. I go, it's not the same. Levis is too tight. Levis is too anxious. Levis is too nervous. Cam is just so cool and fluid physically. Levis was so tight, and Levis was so kind of robotic with his movements, whereas Cam, he's almost too cool and too fluid. He's got talent. But this idea that the Titans are right and everybody else is wrong, that's the thing that drives me crazy. One texter says, do you think if you sit him, that is the answer? It's a gamble either way. I would draft him and I would run to the podium. Well, and Cam's played a lot of college football. So I don't want to say right away that Cam won't start. I would do what Buffalo did with Josh Allen, which is Josh Allen did not start week 1 as a rookie. I believe he started week 2. They went in with the idea that Mitchell Trubisky was going to be the quarterback. And very quickly they were like, no, Josh, you're in. I think it was Trubisky. Maybe it was Nathan Peterman. I can't remember. And I don't know if Peterman got hurt and Allen went in, or if Peterman just sucked and Allen went in, but Allen did not start his first game. That's the way I would approach it, is we'll see. And I would like for Cam to sit on the bench. Like, Cam would have to absolutely go out there and dominate in the offseason program and in training camp and the preseason games in order to be the starting quarterback, to me. But I can't imagine Amy's going to be okay with Brandon Allen out there at quarterback. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. There is something I have to share on the radio, and I never do this. Like, if you listen to the program, you know a lot of talentless hosts are going to do what I'm about to do, but they do it on a consistent basis. This should show you how appalled I am by what I'm about to get to, and we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, be sure to join us on Thursday night. We will be live at Twin Peaks in Madison. I'll be there starting at 2 o'clock, but the draft show, a tradition unlike any other on this station, will be at the Twin Peaks in Madison. That's on Thursday night starting at 6 o'clock, and then Friday, the draft show night 2 will be live from Boom Baz Pizza and Watch Bar in East Nashville. Coverage each night begins at 6 o'clock, presented by Hardee's, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Twin Peaks, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Shane Company, and by Professional Home Improvements. So if you've listened to the Stillman and Company program or Jared and the GM or however long, if you're a longtime listener, you know, I do not venture off the sports page very often. In fact, I have a real problem with people that do. Not to say that they're wrong and I'm right, but years ago, one of the things that I absolutely loved about our program was that we always talked about sports. And I think other sports shows couldn't say the same thing. In fact, I think other sports shows were like, hey, it's great. We don't ever talk about anything other than sports. And I'm like, nah, the old man and I, we like to stick to sports. Me too. You know, the Stillman and Company program, you tuned it into sports. I've always said, if you walk into a Subway restaurant, you're there for a sandwich. If you tune to sports radio, I believe you're here for sports. So if you're listening, you know that I do not very often go on these my own personal rants. But I'm going to have to for a second. Because on Saturday night, we watched a movie off of Netflix called I, Hostage. It's a story, I guess it's based off of a true story about an Apple store and a guy being taken hostage in the Apple store in 2022 in Amsterdam. This movie had a pretty decent trailer. This movie was the number 2 movie in the country, according to Netflix. So we decided, hey, let's watch I, Hostage. It started off like a regular movie. And then all of a sudden, it ended up being one of the worst movies I have ever seen. Now, this isn't like one of those movies that is a bad movie because it's trying to be funny and I don't get the humor or it was just an awful movie. And the reason I decided to bring this up on the air today is because, number one, I thought it was so bad that it deserves to be called out. And going forward, whenever someone is the absolute worst, they will be the I hostage of whatever it is. So like right now, Rand Carthon is the I hostage of Titans general managers. Just the worst. But the other reason I bring it up is this. Far too often, I hear from people that listen to the show or haters on Twitter that say, I make a lot of money by shading you, by picking the other side. If Jared Stillman says the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward, then I know the Titans aren't going to draft Cam Ward. Which, again, that's your business. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm telling you what I believe. So if you're one of these shaders out there, one of these Jared Stillman haters, and I think a third of our audience is people that hate me and hate the show. 1/3 like me and like the show. 1/3 hate me but like the show. And another third, they hate me and they hate the show. And they can't stop listening. If you're one of those people and you know who you are, I want you to go prove me wrong. I want you to watch that movie. And then let's see if you're all tough talk about, I knew it was going to be a good movie when Jared Stillman said it was good. Was the worst movie that he had ever seen. Because I want you to live with the fact that your disbelief in me is so strong that you waste 2 hours of your life. And then when that moment comes that happens to all of us, and Father Peter is getting ready to stand there at the pearly gates with whatever religion you may have, I want you to think about the 2 hours you wasted of your life to watch this movie simply to spite me. Because I think that movie is so bad that even the biggest Jared Stillman hater that goes to watch that movie to say, Jared Stillman, you were wrong. That movie was awesome. Even they'll hate it. As soon as I got done watching it, I did a Twitter search for it. And I saw someone said that was a 0 out of 10 movie. It is truly the worst movie I have ever seen. And again, I don't do this very often. I really don't. We're pretty much all sports, all Titans, all football, all hockey, all everything else. But I had to get that off my chest because that movie was so bad. Again, I Hostage on Netflix. If you hate me, go watch it. Go waste your time. There's no way you could think that was a good movie. That's it for us. The Commodore Hour is next. Stillman and Company. Big weekend, by the way, for Tim Corbin and the Vandy Boys. We'll see y'all tomorrow, too.